All right. All right. All right. Today we are going to be reacting to, I think it already started, but I wanted to let them get ahead of us a little bit. I think it started like 30 minutes ago. But a TikTok feminist, Kylie Brewer. Yeah, Kylie Brewer. Yeah. Is going to be debating Andrew Wilson on the Whatever podcast tonight, and we are going to be watching and seeing how she does. The last one, well, we didn't go over the last one together, but Rafael Gomez from the other night was extremely disappointing. I believe this woman has more experience doing this, but I mean, we'll see. I don't actually know what she has in the way of like debate skills. So we'll find out. But yeah, let me just get all this together and then we'll get started. Excuse me. All right. All right, here we go. Fingers crossed, everyone.
Whatever podcast. We're coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host and moderator, Brian Atlas. A few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer supported, heavy YouTube demonetization. So please consider donating through Streamlabs instead of super chatting, as YouTube takes a brutal 30% cut. That's streamlabs.com/whatever. Link is in the description. We prioritize messages that are made via Streamlabs. To read a message is $99 and up. We're going to read those in batches at various breaks throughout the debate. There will be no instant TTS. Now, if you want to just tip and have 100% of your contribution go towards us, no platform fees, no cut, you can via Venmo or Cash App. That's Whatever Pod on both, links in the description. We're also live on Twitch right now. Pull up another tab. Go to twitch.tv/whatever. Drop us a follow and a Prime sub if you have one. Without further ado, I will introduce our two guests. I'm joined today by Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. He's a blood sports debater and political commentator. Also joining us today is Kylie Brewer. She's an author, content creator, and educator. She received bachelor degrees in psychology and creative writing from Ivy League school, Brown University. She plans to pursue a graduate degree in public policy. She's also a self-described leftist, feminist, anti-racist, LGBTQ activist. The topic today is feminism. You will each have up to a 10-minute opening statement, and then the rest of the show will just be open conversation with some prompt changes and breaks for messages from the audience, followed by each of you having a closing statement. Kylie, you're going to go first. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Kylie. I just wanted to start by saying a little bit about what I stand for, which is just feminism generally. And I would want to say that feminism is a crucial movement, both in the United States and across the world. Feminism is defined as advocating for gender equality and challenging the structures of power that perpetuate discrimination and violence against women. It is not an attack on men, rather, it is a call for an equal and just society. In the US, despite progress, women face systemic inequalities, which means that gender inequality is rooted in many of the systems that we see today. For instance, women in the US earn 82 cents for every dollar that a man makes, and black women earn just 63 cents.
Those are not the numbers the last I saw them, but Okay.
So there are three reasons potentially that this could be the case, which is I would say that we do not value female labor enough in this country. And there's a phenomenon called male flight, which is typically when a field becomes very female dominated, 50 to 60% women. Men typically begin to leave that field and the pay rate for women drops. So that might be some sort of implicit phenomenon happening, as well as domestic labor is unpaid, which is when women typically take on more of the child rearing in homes, and obviously that is not something that is compensated. And for women who do go to work and raise kids, there's inadequate child support, meaning we often miss out on promotions or other major opportunities in the career because we are not supported in that way. So this all could explain that economic inequality. Which brings me to, according to the World Economic Forum, it's going to take roughly 300 years to close the gender gap for both economic and political empowerment for women. In countries like Afghanistan, women still battle for access to education and healthcare as well as personal freedoms. In some places, if they open the door without being covered, they may be beaten or arrested. Which brings me to this. The home is the most dangerous place for women, according to the United Nations. The home, the place where we should all feel safe. 6 women are killed every hour around the world by people they know. Now, here are some other very depressing statistics. 1 in 3 women experience violence at the hands of a man in their lifetime, whether that's physical or SA. And that's according to the World Health Organization.
Why is she quoting world statistics in a United States of America debate? Okay.
50% of women who were unalived in 2017 were killed by an intimate partner violence. It's according to the United Nations. 650 million women were married before the age of 18. This is according to UNICEF, meaning they became child brides, often against their will. Now, the final statistic is that 71% of human trafficking victims are women and girls. This is not to negate the importance of male victims and standing up for their rights as well, just to point out a general pattern in the fact that women are typically overlooked as well as overrepresented in being victims of crimes. Now, there's also a general tendency to blame women for our oppression, that we make less because our work is less important, or because we choose to work in fields that don't pay as much money, or that we were SA'd because of the clothes we were wearing, or that we were unalived because we chose to marry the wrong man. But none of these things are true, and they are rooted in really harmful misconceptions about what the feminist movement stands for. I'm sure you all are also expecting me to be very angry today, and I hope that I won't be, but I'm truly interested in furthering the feminist cause, and promoting equality, even if it means sometimes talking to people who don't agree with me. And finally, I just would like to say that men can be feminists, and they're very important for the feminist movement, for seeking equal rights around the world. And we strive to combat hate, not promote it, for equal rights for all. And by definition, feminism is about the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes, not about female supremacy or anything like that. And I hope to debunk some of the myths that people think about feminists today and show that it is a very important cause, not just globally, but in the US and in the West. Thank you.
All right, Kylie, thank you very much for your...
That was a weak opening statement. That was weak. But maybe they're doing quick ones today.
opening statement. Andrew, if you'd like to give yours now.
Yeah, just a second. Let me back up here. There's one thing I wanted to address right in my opening. I've been going through Kylie's videos, and she knows so much which is not so. This is a big bait and switch. This happens often. I think I pointed this out to the Whatever podcast many times, especially when it comes to sociology and psychology, how often they are wrong. And here's how they're wrong most often. What they do is they take studies which are recently published, they point to those data sets and say, because this is right now the most current data set we have, it's true, and then operate as though those things are in reality true when they're not. Kinsey says, for instance, on gender quotas, according to, and she cites this, and many feminists cite this.
My name is, are you talking about?
The Kinsey study.
Oh, the Kinsey study. Thank you.
Yeah, the Kinsey study, which you cite, right? And most feminists cite.
You can't really be interrupting during opening statements.
The Kinsey study.
I guess to correct your own name is what she thought she was doing for a second there, but you wait till the end.
has been debunked for years. I don't know why
Which study
feminists
is this?
continue. Hang on.
Wait,
It's my
Okay. You cannot interrupt during opening statements. Is this her first debate ever?
opening statement.
You'll have a chance to
Yeah.
cross-examine him. Just allow him to
So
finish his
let me
opening
walk you
statement.
through this. Earlier this week, journalist Christopher Brunette flagged a paper in a March 2024 issue of Econ Journal Watch, a biannual publication edited by George Mason economist Daniel Klein, that publishes articles, links, responses to other economist errors. The paper, written by accounting professor Jeremiah Green of Texas A&M and John R.M. Hand of the University of North Carolina, addressed the first of 3 McKinsey 4-installment series of diversity studies. Green and Hand sought to test the replicability of McKinsey's findings. Guess what they found, guys? Could another set of researchers using the same data come to the same conclusions? Since McKinsey refused to turn over its numbers, Green and Hand had to reverse engineer the firm's 2015, 18, and 20 data sets. The results were startling. Green and Hand couldn't replicate the results of McKinsey's first 3 studies, which monitored the profitability of the executive demographics of an undisclosed group of S&P 500 firms claiming to have found a positive correlation between diverse leadership and the firm's performance. We do not find a statistical significant positive correlation between McKinsey's measures of the racial ethnic diversity of executive terms of firms as measured in December 2019, Green and Hand reported, and either the likelihood of financial outperformance in 15-19. So to give you a quick summary, the study seems to show its most likely correlation and not causation, meaning companies were already doing very financially well, and they have the luxury to mess around with diversity quotas and initiatives. In addition, the data from the 2024 paper was unable to replicate any of the older McKinsey studies, any of them. That should tell you something. So that's a very recent data set, right? Why don't any of the psychologists ever go with the recent data set? Well, the reason they don't go with it is because it doesn't affirm their nonsensical worldviews. That's why they don't go with them, ever. You'll find this very common in sociology and in psychology, which suffer from the replication crisis. Somewhere around 60% of their findings cannot be replicated, are not to be trusted. Psychology is the study of the mind. The scientific views of psychology are only done through data collection, but it has to be interpreted. This is a major, major problem. So many feminists will tell you so many studies, and luckily I have all of the
Oh, you can't be making weird faces and stuff during someone's opening statement. What is wrong with you?
ones to refute all of my opponent's studies today, because what happens is they have a biased worldview and they want the data set to correlate with the worldview rather than wanting to tell you what the actual truth is. The truth is that a bunch of S&P 500 companies who are very rich were already doing really well, and for the purposes of publicity, they decided that they were going to start doing a bunch of DEI hires and ethnic hires and this type of thing, and they decided that the correlation they made the correlation causation error. That's it. You'll find this over and over again, I'm sure, as we go through this debate, as we go through the numbers, especially when it comes to the abuse of women, especially when it comes to just how useful women are. We talk about domesticated labor. What a joke. You believe that women should be paid some type of domestic wage. However, it's skilled labor in the home, which keeps the home running. It's always going to be paid way more than domestic labor because it's more worthwhile than domestic labor. Simple. So with that, I'll finish my opening statement. I can't wait to dive right into this.
Okay, so Kylie, it sounded like you maybe had some pushback you wanted to give on something Andrew said there.
Yeah, so I very briefly referenced the McKinsey study, and McKinsey and Company's Women in the Workplace study, by the way, is what he's referring to. But it's actually, if you go and look it up, it's generally considered accurate and comprehensive in its findings. So I have quite literally no idea what my opponent is talking about, as well as the fact that this is a red herring fallacy of just, oh, this is wrong and my opponent is wrong for the following reasons.
How's that a red herring?
Because
That's
you're
not
not
a
actually acknowledging any of the information that I said.
I refuted the information.
that's not a red herring fallacy. That's not what he did, and that's not what that refers to.
I didn't even hardly talk about that.
I have refutations to your video. I have your video right here, and you start by saying the largest comprehensive study, the Kinsey study.
Which one are you talking about?
I'll play it for you. Give me a second here.
Okay, well, I think we should stick to what we're talking about today. And I just
Well, we're talking about all of this today. So the
okay. Well, I would like you to be less hostile to me first of all, because I
Oh my God, she can't be allowed to debate people. It can't be like this.
think we should just have a general discussion.
Stop whining. We're doing a debate.
Stop.
So,
Okay. I'm not going to give you the reaction that I know you're looking
yeah.
for.
So women are better leaders than most. You agree?
Yes. I was looking at that video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like one of the ones that.
And you cite which study?
Oh yeah, the one that I'm talking about now. But I didn't reference that in my opening at all. So I think the people in the audience, if they had any sort of common sense following along, they'd be like, "What is he talking about?"
No, they'll figure it out. No problem.
Kylie didn't mention that,
Yeah,
which I didn't.
But the thing is like this is a current core part of your worldview and belief, and you make propaganda videos about it, even though it's completely uninformed.
That women are better leaders. I think that is a subjective opinion. None of the statistics and facts that I gave previously are objective opinions. Like the fact that women didn't have the right to vote until 1920, women couldn't open a bank account in the United States until 1974.
When did men get the right to vote?
Oh, okay, I know this is exactly what you were talking about. This is what you're known for, is like getting people on a technicality that we don't historically know. But the answer to that is no. The answer to that
The answer is that's no?
No, the answer to that is the fact that in 1920, everyone was given the right to vote, but there were still barriers to vote for people of color.
When did men get the right to vote?
The right to vote was guaranteed to all people in 1920, according to the 19th Amendment.
Before 1920, were all men allowed to vote?
No.
Okay, great.
They weren't.
And then even when men's
because
suffrage
of white
was passed,
supremacy and because our system was not founded equally.
Are you aware that men only got any rights to vote about a decade, roughly, before women?
That is not true. Men have been the founding fathers were all men, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
What does that have to do with the right to vote?
The right to vote was historically withheld from men of color. It was
It was also withheld from the general population.
Do not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I am in the middle of speaking.
I don't care if you're in the middle of speaking. You're in the middle of a debate.
The right to vote.
You don't have your TikTok mute button, sweetheart?
I will not be speaking anymore until you have a conversation with him.
Bro, you can't do that. What do you mean? You can't do that. What?
Well, look, if we can, for both people, if we can allow each other to finish, even if you want to jump in, just let the other person finish speaking. If somebody's going on a monologue and they're filibustering, I'll try to get them to wrap up. But just if they're making a point, just try to let them finish.
No, I did not go to school for 4 years and build a platform to be talked to like this. So I will be walking away from the microphone right now, and I would encourage you to get your guest under control. I'm going to take 2 minutes, so you can ask him questions if you'd like, and I will be right back.
Because you run the show?
I just won't be back. And
I don't give a shit. What do I care? I'm here to have a debate, not listen to your whining. Do you want to have a debate or not?
All right, I'm not going to be talking.
The rage clip quit would be so much better for Andrew than any beating her in any kind of debate. Like, this would look so bad for her. Is she really gonna walk away for 2 minutes?
Like this,
well, do you want to just take a little 2-minute breather? You want to take a 2-minute breather?
This is feminism? You're the strong woman?
She literally is walking away.
You're the strong woman? Really?
Guys, we can't do this like this.
Woman. I will not be talked to. Like what? What did I even say?
I would
I will not be talked to like that. Yeah, you will. What are you talking about? It's a debate.
Maybe we can try to stick to.
There's been some really strong feminist women in that chair who have debated with me, just not this one.
Yeah.
None of the other women that Andrew's debated in that chair have rage quit. None. Or told him to, like, not interrupt or anything like that. It's a debate. This is how they go. And some of them were, like, not famous TikTok feminists. They were just regular college students. And they sat there and held their own. I wouldn't say they won necessarily, but they sat there the whole time. This is so.
Although I think maybe for the sake of the ensuring that the debate happens.
Let's see, does she come back?
Maybe.
Well, what am I supposed to worry about? Tone policing and this and that because I have points and refutations which may hurt people's feelings?
Well, I think she overreacted a little bit.
Massively overreacted.
Yeah, time it. Give us 60,
She did that
60
But I mean,
for.
I'm fine with keeping
That was
it
a
open, but
freaking
just
virtue signal, so
if-
she can
if
clip
you're
that
talking
and put it on
onto
later.
Yeah, but when
try to let her finish if you can. But
yeah,
All right,
let's do
here we go.
60-second back and forth.
Here we
That's
go
fine with me.
again.
As
You
long
wanna
as there's some
do-
boundaries, yeah.
You want to do that? 60 seconds back
Sure.
and forth?
That works.
Or if you guys want, we could give it another shot at just keeping it open combo.
Sure.
So why don't we do that? If the interruptions continue, you guys feel like you're not.
But
getting-
I would like to just point out that
Wait. We have to set the rules first. No more talking. Yes, we will do 60
Well,
seconds
like
back
I'm
and
supposed
forth.
to be talked to like that
Hold
though,
on.
right?
No, 60 seconds back and forth. I will leave. I'm so serious. We sign an agreement if I appear
fucking
here.
leave. I don't care.
We
Oh
sign
my
an
God.
I care if you
I'm
fucking
not
leave.
talking to you.
Hold on, guys.
I'm not
guys,
talking
guys.
to you.
Okay.
I'm talking-
Go ahead. What's your proposal?
My proposal, if we don't do 60 seconds back and forth, I will walk out right now. The agreement was that I appear. It does not say that I have to stay for 3 hours, so I will leave.
Oh, Brian did the shenanigans thing with the contracts again. He's making the face. He doesn't like it when people talk about the contracts while the live is happening.
Right now.
All right.
Because
all right.
I'm not going to be talked to like this. I
Like
mean,
what? Yeah, what?
real men.
A real
don't
you're
talk
going to tell me what a
women
real
like
man
this.
is?
Well, Andrew.
My dad.
Real women don't abort their children, lady.
My dad has the
Andrew.
same political beliefs as you, and he would
So-
never talk to a woman
And my
like that.
sister
You
has
are
the same political
embarrassing.
beliefs as you, and she would never
Can you
dare
guys-
talk to a
look,
man like
guys,
that.
guys,
Like, what's your
hold on.
point?
Can
That
you
makes
both
no
stop?
sense.
Andrew, can you stop?
Andrew,
In
that's really disrespectful.
furtherance-
Oh
look,
God, everything's disrespectful.
Andrew, stop.
You're
In
such a
hold on,
crybaby.
Andrew,
Jesus.
stop. In furtherance of ensuring that this debate actually occurs, let's set some ground rules. We got to allow people to finish their points. And Andrew, maybe you've said some mocking things towards her.
No, I have not mocked him at
Well,
all.
look,
No. I've stood
I'm
up for
gonna- I
myself,
need to be
and I
fair.
will not be.
This attitude right here is bad enough without any mocking. Like, you got to chill. You got to calm down. Like, literally random college girls have faced off against Andrew Wilson without rage quitting and falling apart. And you're a professional. Well, professional is a strong word. You're a large content creator. Chill out.
Mocked. I have not said a word that is bad to you. I talked to you about your
hold on.
family in Michigan. I want to get to know you.
Kylie,
This isn't
Kylie.
about anything about me mocking you. This is a
I'm
boundary
not
of
here
him
to get to
attacking
know
me.
you. I'm here
Look.
to do a debate.
Look, when you return to the table, you did the tone. Your tone wasn't the best towards Andrew. And look.
tone?
Hold on.
Oh,
I'll
wow.
be fair. Hold on, Kylie. I'll be
That's
fair.
classic.
Andrew's tone towards you wasn't great either. In furtherance of ensuring that the debate actually occurs, why don't we just get back to it and stick to the substance of the conversation?
Okay.
How
I'm trying
long
to
do
be
we think
fair
this
to
is
both
going to
of you.
last?
But 60 seconds each, yeah? No
I don't know.
interruptions?
Andrew, if you're fine with that, then
Okay.
I'm fine with that. So we'll.
Great.
And if you
All
guys
right,
are
we're doing
open
debates
to it,
with
if that
rules
goes
now.
well,
That's
the 60
boring.
seconds each, we can bring it back to open conversation.
But
Okay.
we'll
There's
see.
have to be some cross-examination at some point, but yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Okay. So Kylie, go ahead. You have 60 seconds.
Okay, so the point of my conversation here is I would genuinely like to have an open discussion about like what feminism means and to debunk some of the feminist myths, but my opponent seems to want to attack me instead and call me names, which is totally okay. I'm used to that, especially if you look at my comments online. But
Is it okay, or did you just rage quit for 2 minutes? Which is it?
the point being, I'm going to try my best to keep it very mellow. Again, if I'm being attacked, I am going to get defensive, but I would like to start by saying, yes, the McKinsey study in sociology, psychology studies are flawed, and that is true. They are continually, it's a field that's expanding, and that's why I chose to study psychology, because I do find it so interesting. But that doesn't negate the fact that plenty of studies have found a significant correlation between being a woman and being a victim of violence at the hands of a man. And again, the study of 1 in 3 women globally who experience sexual or physical violence. And I think that is the core of what a lot of feminists believe in, is trying to combat that violent behavior and to protect women. I I'm sure that's close to a minute, so I can pass it over
Yeah,
to
so
you.
feminism has completely lied to everybody, and I'll explain exactly how. It failed in its promise. Its promise was that it was supposed to protect women. It hasn't protected women. The very idea that you want to put women inside of male workforces is not protecting women. The idea that you want to have dual colleges where it's men and women together is not protecting women. These are terrible ideas, and they've been borne out as being terrible ideas. When you talk about sociological studies being flawed, I don't think that you're really being honest about how flawed they are. The replication crisis in sociology is getting worse, not better. It's not getting better. Even with all the meta-analysis, it's not getting better. Why isn't it getting better? It's because of bias. There's so much bias which is going on, especially from the purview of feminists. And feminists use standpoint theory. They want everything to go through the view of women. So when you're talking about, for instance, the criteria, when you're talking about what that means that women are assaulted, right? What is the criteria for that, for what an assault actually is?
That's a really good question. There are definitely, we are definitely working on defining the lines for that. So right now there's an acronym that we are coming up with that we want to teach in schools of like what that means, which is FRIES, so freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, or engaged in specific of what consent means, so that there is no confusion about what is happening in terms of, like whether it's an assault, because I know that does happen where men are confused and they don't know, and especially if there's alcohol involved. And so my goal is to protect women and also to make sure that men know that if they are causing harm, that, I mean, a lot of men, they don't want to hurt other people. They don't realize it. And so I think if we have better education about like what assault is and how to prevent it, because again, there are male victims. So I think if it's something that we can come forward about and make sure that everyone feels heard and supported, then men would also come forward more about like if they've been assaulted.
This doesn't answer my question, though. My question is, when you cite the data on how many of these women have actually been assaulted, what is the criteria being used?
That's a good question. I see your point of how it varies, like based upon the study and things like that. But I think a lot of these problem is that it is self-reported. But again, another issue is that that means they could be underreported as well, because women are too scared to report it. So yes, there are issues with that. But another.
No. He didn't ask about the reporting. He asked about what are they calling assault? Because it's not, they don't use the legal definition of assault for these studies. They use whoever's doing the study usually makes up a definition. That's what he's asking. I don't know why she's not answering that, because there's an answer.
Another thing, though, is that women are definitely in a position in the home where they are not safe in a lot of places. And again, that comes back to the kind of assumption that I was talking about earlier, is that like it's because we married the wrong man and this guy is unsafe in our home. But it's not about that. It's sometimes when you marry somebody or you date somebody, they can then become violent towards you because they see you as their property almost.
Most of these domestic violence claims and things like this are happening from single mothers with boyfriends, though, not happening from the father at home.
Do you
in
have a
married
source for that?
relationships. Yes, I do.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering.
He's right on that. It is whenever you bring, and this is true for men who bring women in as well, it's not as big of a severe leap, obviously. It's not even close. But one of the most dangerous, statistically dangerous situations for a child is when you have a single mom with a new male partner that's not the father in the home, living in the home. Now this goes down a lot if the bio father has a active role in the children's lives, but I think it's something like at least a third of single mothers, there is no active role that the bio dad plays in the children's lives. So it is kind of a skewed statistic, but he is correct. A lot of that, most of it, I would probably is from after divorce partners, not from the actual father.
Because
Not only is that factually the case, but interestingly enough, if the state seizes custody of a child inside of an abusive home, the child's actually more likely at the hands of the state to die than they are in the hands of the abusive home, which is insane but true.
I think.
Now, let me give you the studies that you're talking about here.
Okay.
Okay.
Are these the studies about which claims that you said?
Yeah, so here we're going to start with the National Incident Study, NIS. It's the largest collection of all types reporting data relating to abuse and maltreatment of children. Okay? 68% of maltreated children were maltreated by a female, whereas 48% were maltreated by a male. Some children were maltreated by both. Of children maltreated by biological parents, mothers.
Well, yeah, but that's because children spend, generally speaking, more time with their mothers than their fathers inside the home. So obviously it would be higher. You would think it would actually be a lot higher than 68%.
Maltreated the majority, 75%, where fathers maltreated a sizable majority, 43%. In contrast, male perpetrators were more common for children maltreated by non-biological parents or parents' partners, 64% or 75%. Safest place you can possibly be in the home is with your husband and with your children. That's for women, the safest place they can be. Any study that you pull up is going to be drawing from the NIS source. That's direct from the NIS itself. There's no refuting that. I've looked and looked and looked. It is definitely from partner incident violence. Women are the safest when they have a husband in the home.
I think for some women that is the case. I think there are good men out there, and I think that's a misconception. That
No. You can't do the some woman thing. That's a statistical reality. You have to bite that and fight them on the actual points. You can't do this. It's for some crap. This is like day one stuff.
feminists don't believe in that
It could be her first debate, though.
there are good men, that we hate all men, which definitely isn't true. But I would like to say, like, because you're saying, psychology is an evolving field, there are different studies and different numbers. Male perpetrators are predominant, and while the exact percentage differs, it's generally estimated that between 75 and 90% of child sexual abuse is committed by men or male adolescents.
Nope. That's because it's not drawing from the correct data set, which would be the NIS.
But
and the reason they do that
have the
is
authority to say which one is the correct data set?
Because they all draw from the NIS. All of them draw from this data set, the NIS. They have to. It's the most comprehensive source for reporting. So here's what happens. If you wanted to gather data, you're a psychologist.
Are you seriously explaining to me how it works to gather data?
No, I'm asking you a question.
Oh, okay.
If you wanted to gather data,
Yes.
right? If you want, especially on crimes, you would use law enforcement or the best source for reporting, right? In this case, self-reporting is going to be far less reliable than reports to the police, things like this, right?
Yes, understandable. So you're saying that this is the most comprehensive, therefore the most reliable source.
It's the most comprehensive source.
But where are you finding that it is the most comprehensive? Because you haven't mentioned a source that says it is, because I'm looking at it now.
The NIS?
That's not from the NIS. There's a national...
It's from the NIS. From the NIS.
There's the National Center for Victims of Crime in RAIN, which is the statistics that I just
RAIN
pulled
draws
up.
from the NIS.
RAIN. Oh, did he literally just... Okay, yeah, never mind. RAIN draws from the NIS, obviously.
Okay, so then how come it draws from the same source? And my conclusion is different than yours.
Because they changed the criteria for what is considered assault, and they changed the criteria. Like, I've seen it as bad as them saying that men cannot be essayed by women because it's non-penetrative.
I see. So you're saying that that would skew the numbers.
It does skew the numbers. So the results of the National Incident Study, NIS, the largest collection of all types of reported data related to abuse and maltreatment, 68% of maltreated children were maltreated by a female, 48% maltreated by a male. Mm-hmm. Women, when they're in positions of power over people who are weaker than them, actually abuse more than men do. So at the same time, while you say, well, women have to run this big gambit of threats from men because men are much stronger than women and have more propensity of violence, when women are in charge of people who are inferior in strength to them, their incidences of violence towards them are much higher than men's incidences of violence towards them.
It
sounds like women are the greater threat here than men.
Sure. If you want to say that, that's totally your prerogative, but that's not what the numbers say. So you can say, no, it's my turn to speak. You can say what you want about all the different statistics and how they come from a specific study, but the point is that there are different estimates, and basically every study conducted globally has found that the number of female victims is astronomically higher than male victims. Not to say male victims aren't important. If you are a male victim, especially if you haven't spoken up, I have seen the effects of having male sexual assault in my family, so please, talk to somebody. It is serious. But 1 in 6 boys have been sexually assaulted assaulted, and a lot of the time it is by male offenders.
Yeah,
so it is
but what
serious.
about the fact
But
that
the
when we're
point is
talking
That
about
number was correct.
outrages of
are victims
abuse
more.
of children, women are the ones who are most often in charge of children. The domestic rates, for instance, inside of a boy's home where the guards, prison guards are all male, and it's a male, youth population versus female. If there's a females in charge of the youth population, the statistics for abuse skyrocket. Same thing inside of public
Are
schools.
you saying that women are more likely to be
Women are more
pedophiles?
likely. No, women are more likely than men when it comes to the weaker sex. In this case, children. We would just say children are both sexes, right? But they're the weaker human than women. When they're in charge of children, they actually abuse them far more than what men abuse women at. And so it's like, so who's really the dangerous ones here?
I mean,
Your 60 seconds begins. Go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
thank
You're
you,
good.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Well, I would like to say that is a claim.
Brian, where have you been? You just went through like 10 of the 60-second segments without clocking the timer. But all right.
That is a reasonable conclusion that you are drawing from the data that you are presenting. Unfortunately, that is not true, though. That the vast majority of sex offenders are male, and especially when there are still female offenders, and that is still bad. But the point is that there is significant male dominance, and that most sex offenders are male, and females do commit sex crimes, but they're often underrepresented as perpetrators. So you're correct. But
Hold on.
Data you're reporting,
Hold on.
is it?
Do you want to continue?
yes, please. And so
I'll give you your 60.
this is from the United States Commission Sentencing, which is just about sexual abuse offenders. And there's a whole pie chart here, but about how many times they offend and who they offend and who they're under guidance for. And again, it is saying that the vast majority, up to 80% of the perpetrators,
10
are
seconds.
men.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah, you can talk now.
So women, do you agree with me that I have to ask some questions here so I can figure some things out? I hope that you'll answer them. So, do you agree with me that both men and women have the propensity to, in some way, essay the other partner, both of them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's. I mean, no. Yes, I agree. It is definitely possible
Okay.
for both sexes to do that.
The
yeah.
question becomes, if you switch criteria around, right, for what is considered sexual assault, let's just assume things like catcalling are put in the category.
That's harassment. But
Yeah,
are you
but
saying
let's
hypothetically?
say it's categorized,
Okay.
not as harassment, but as a form of sexual abuse. Would you
Okay.
say that would greatly skew the numbers?
If that were how it was classified, yes. Do you
Yeah.
have evidence that is how it is
I
classified?
do. In fact, there's a whole grouping of colleges in a study that I can show you where that was smuggled in as a form of sexual assault or SA or
Interesting.
sexual battery in some cases, right? They smuggle in, and so what they do is they decide that they want to make that data set wider. And so they just reclassify things which would not ordinarily be classified as sexual assault or sexual battery by just inserting those things. Now, the same exact thing happens here. Do you think that it's very masculine, for instance, inside of society, for men to go and report when a woman gives them unwanted touching?
No. And matter of fact, I do know male victims with female perpetrators.
And they have
yeah.
unwanted touching?
Yes.
So they're just far more likely to report it because of the social stigma, which happens to them often from women who tell them things like, I don't consider you a real man like you did to me earlier.
Oh, I didn't really say that, but.
You did. Your exact words were, a real man would X.
Oh yeah, like real men like my dad who have the same political beliefs but don't talk to women the way you do.
Yeah, whatever that means. But anyway, so
He's
a
watching
real
too.
man does X, right? Wouldn't you say that the social stigma around the fact that women can kind of get away with the same type of inappropriate touching without men reporting would greatly skew these numbers?
Yes, however, I think that women and men who are victims and are perpetrators as well, I think those are both underreported. I think across the board it's underreported, but more for male victims with female perpetrators.
Well, how many
So I
more for
suppose-
male victims?
I don't know.
But it could be.
It could
It
be.
could be drastic, right?
And I would hope not.
And if it is drastic, then it would skew your numbers on all of those percentages across the
Oh,
board.
absolutely,
wouldn't
it would. But the problem is we have no way of gathering that data. And with the data we do have, though, I see what you're saying about the stigma, but it is so vastly that women are victims and men are the perpetrators that I don't see that catching up in any percentage.
Why not? It depends on how underreported it is. In fact,
I
a lot of
suppose.
these data sets draw from unreported incidences via estimates, don't they?
Unreported incidences via estimates.
Yes. So
I suppose, yeah. There's
yeah.
no way that they can actually gather that data. Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be the exact same thing, right? They're making a supposition based on an estimate. This would equally have to apply to men. But if the social stigma is there by your own admission that men are basically not reporting the instances of unwanted touching from women due to this social stigma, we don't actually know how bad that social stigma really is, do we?
No, and I mean, that's also what feminists, that's a great point, and I agree with you, because feminists, that is one of, it's also
It's probably huge. I mean, I've had a lot of women just like walk up and grab parts of me at like concerts and stuff. And I don't remember ever reporting it to
My 60
anyone. But none of this really has to do with feminism. I don't like none of this has to do with feminism.
seconds, right?
Well,
No?
we're having a back and forth now, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
If
can
you
I have
got-
60 seconds? Because I would just like to talk a little bit about like
Well, you
stigma.
can't we can't get into a back and forth and then like arbitrarily demand whole blocks.
Okay,
of
well,
time, right?
I'm just going to give some statistics because I think we're on
Go
the
ahead.
same page here. I think we've actually found common ground. So the stigma around SA and abuse is what allows these numbers to be underreported. And so I think that because that's what feminists want, is we want men to be comfortable coming forward as well, because we want safety and equality for the sexes. That is what the definition of the term is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of
Well,
the
let me
sexes.
refute these lies because
Well, I think that some people don't believe that who are feminists.
all
but-
national campaigns that I've seen hyper focus on women and the abuse of women, already making the supposition that men are the monsters and the criminals who are doing the unwanted touching and the essaying. And because of that, because this is done at a national level, at a state level, at a local level, and the organizations and NGOs are all hyper focusing on women, this stigma towards men is never addressed because women are only looking at it through the prism of
Well, I
women.
don't, you know, it's not just women who are working on these studies, right, and who are writing these articles.
It doesn't
it's also
matter.
men.
Don't you say men can be feminists?
Yeah.
Okay,
but,
so by your criteria, these men who have the same exact worldview as you, they're still hyper focusing on feminism. And the idea always starts with the supposition that men are the more violent sex, that they are more often doing these types of SA, sexual assaults, things like this. And what do we end up with? We end up with very skewed numbers based on the criteria, right? Where within just a matter of minutes, we can determine that not only can most of this stuff be replicated, but we can also determine that just based on the viewed categorization of these things, they can't be true. These
Yeah.
numbers can't.
She has to get him off of this numbers point and get him onto the point that while yes, men and women are actually, it turns out, pretty much violent at about the same rate, men's violence does so much more damage. I don't know why she's letting him drag her down this path. She should bring him back to that point. Oh, but then he'll get into force doctrine, and she probably doesn't have any refutations for force doctrine. Yeah, we'll see.
Can't be true.
Okay, now, so I don't understand where you're coming from with how it can't be true, how something can't be true, because again, if you're going off of something being underreported and the data not being there, you're saying, okay, well then this is true, which means this can't be true, which means this, and you're not even going from like actual data that
Do you
we
want me to
have.
demonstrate it?
No, I'm okay. I'm talking for now, please.
Well, I'll
but-
demonstrate it real quick. So it would be like this.
No, I'm actually okay.
Are there-
I feel like you've dominated the conversation for the last few minutes. If that's okay, if I would like to.
Well, I
take
thought
some
you just
data.
wanted me to demonstrate for you something.
No, I'm actually okay on that. Thank you.
You don't want me to? You asked me a
No.
question, you don't want me to answer it?
No. I was actually in the middle of talking.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Thank you.
You're
so-
welcome.
Thank you. No, like that was genuine. I wasn't trying to be.
I know, you're welcome.
Thanks. Yeah. So
The patriarchy's benevolent.
Yes. So I think that the four
Jesus
principles
Christ.
that is a common misconception that, and if you want to refute these, like I would love that. But working to increase equality economically and politically for women, which again not rooted in female supremacy, but some people think it is. Expanding human choice, meaning male, female, everyone. Eliminating gender stratification, which means globally it's
Hang on,
typically
can we move back to 2?
yes, expanding human choice. And for everybody. And then 3, eliminating
Davish, can I do recommendations? Recommendations for what, buddy?
gender stratification. How like most of the power and money is concentrated to men globally. So sort of making the opportunities there for women. And again, like you have to think about this globally as well. Like we're very US centric, I think, in this debate, but there are definitely countries where women are really, really deprived of any sort of autonomy. And then the final one is ending sexual violence, which we've talked about quite a lot. So those are the 4 principles of feminism as we see it today. And although there are different places around the world, I guess we can focus.
Possibly. If I haven't already reacted to it, yeah. Jordan Peterson versus Zizek. Is there only one of those? But yeah, I can look it up for sure. We can do that after this. I don't know how long this is going to go. It could be like 3 hours, so we'll see. And I'm a bit behind too.
Sort of here and globally, if you have points on that, or if you just want to confine it to the U.S.
This is
then
technically
let me know.
live, but
Yeah,
we're like,
well, the U.S. is where I live.
how
That's
far
what I'm
behind are
talking
we?
about. But
Okay.
so when we're discussing this
We're about
idea,
40 minutes behind,
especially
so
of no, these numbers are accurate. That actually can't
we
be
might
true.
catch
You
up
said, no,
if we
it
skip some
actually
super
can't be. Well,
chats,
no,
though.
it can't be because one, you've already admitted that there's a stigma towards reporting, which means that these numbers are already skewed right from the get-go. Here's a good demonstration of this. This is something you'll hear psychologists say a lot, and I'm sure you probably said it yourself, that mental illness probably has always been somewhat near as high as it is right now. It's just that it went underreported, right? That's something that you would say. Or there's just as many transgender people now as there were, or homosexuals. It's just that we didn't have the right numbers because they weren't able to report them correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it follows then that if it is the case that under all of these circumstances, due to a lack of reporting due to stigma, we didn't have the correct numbers, and so you can suppose that into the data that you have right now for how many there's always been.
Right.
Why couldn't I do the exact same thing with SA numbers?
No, you can, but how are you going to get the how are you going to get the figure that it is more? Are you saying it's more female perpetrators than male perpetrators?
If I look
how
at,
could you possibly get that
because
number?
if I look at the raw data and we look at stigmas, right? If we're looking,
we agree on stigma, but the data.
Did you catch the beginning? Because she almost rage quit already.
How do you have
because
that?
the data is not taking into account the stigma towards male reporting.
But it is. But I'm saying there are no
But it's
reported
not.
cases.
She's doing a lot better now, but she did almost rage quit at the beginning, like 1 minute into the debate.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
no, it's
can't.
not.
How do you,
You're right.
how do you
You're right.
report the cases if the stigma's there for them to not report?
So yes, given that, how do we come up with any? Because
Well,
these other places they come up with estimates,
Well,
these
whether
studies that you just cited.
whether we come,
So how do we come up with an
hang on.
estimate for female
Whether
perpetrators?
we come up with the estimate or not, we have good
One
reason to
second.
doubt
I'm still listening. I just need to turn my AC on.
the various estimates by RAIN and these other sexual advocacy organizations, especially when I look at the NIS, because when I look at the NIS, I get totally different numbers, and it's way more comprehensive. It's the largest, most comprehensive data set on planet Earth is the NIS, and that's what it shows. It shows that women are far more likely to abuse their children than men. When women are in positions of dominant power and authority over weaker people than themselves, they're more likely to abuse almost every time. This is also included in healthcare stats. When they are in charge of people who are weaker than them in healthcare situations, they abuse far more than men do.
You keep talking about the NIS. Which specific? Are you talking about the national? Because the specific study that you're talking about, how women are perpetrators more frequently, genuinely cannot find it anywhere on the internet.
Okay.
At the end, go back and watch the beginning because it's. I thought she was gonna fully rage quit right at the beginning, but she calmed way down, and now they're talking like normal people again.
Okay, I'll pull up the exact study if you give me just a second.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Because I'm looking at the Bureau of Justice statistics and the FBI
So you can
and
find this from the U.S.
even the CDC
You can
talks
find
about
this
it.
from the U.S. Department of Justice. Sexual victimization in juvenile facilities reported by youth 2012.
Okay.
Okay?
And is this where you're saying that?
These are all comprehensive.
Female-
These are all comprehensively included inside of the NIS. This is what I'm saying is that I have each individual study ready for you. You can look also, and we can move to this as well if you want to.
Wait, so is this the one where you're saying that female perpetrators are more frequent? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. That's from the National Incident Study.
Oh, National Incident Study.
Yes.
Okay.
The largest collection of all types of reported data related to abuse, maltreatment of children.
This is all nice and this is all true. However, women spend way more time in positions of authority over children than men do. So you would expect these numbers to be higher for women. This is kind of a boring part of the conversation. I wish they would get back to some more the core values of feminism versus Andrew's Christian Orthodox.
68% of the maltreated children were maltreated by a female, 48% maltreated by a male. And every circumstance, the NIS finds that when women are put in charge of people who are weaker than themselves are more likely to abuse than the stronger sex, that being men. And what's interesting about this is it gives us every reason to believe that if women had the exact same frame and build as men did, that men that they would actually abuse far more often than men do them. Right? So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a huge problem where women who are supposedly being abused by men are doing a whole lot of abuse which is going unreported of children while you're focusing on the scapegoat of men.
Yeah, I don't doubt that women are, unfortunately, a lot of women are abusing children, but the study that you're saying, the only thing that I'm able to find is that 1 in every 25 children in the US experience maltreatment. Neglect is more prevalent than abuse. And then they talk about how for the 4% of children that experience genuine maltreatment and in danger of death. But I'm not seeing anything. It says, oh, girls were sexually abused much more often than boys under the harm standard and endangerment standard, with male perpetrators being more common. That's all I was able to find.
Okay, would you like for me to actually link it to you? That was just from the juvenile facility study, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about the NIS data? The NIS data is going to be the most important because it's the most comprehensive collection of it.
It's funny because you keep repeating this talking point about a study that I can't find.
Well, how do you?
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but
So, here's her. I think I know what her issue is. The NIS data isn't a study in the sense that she's thinking of. A study is when you take data from somewhere and you organize it in a specific way to look for trends in the data, stuff like that. The NIS data is just the actual numbers of this occurred X times, this occurred X times, this occurred X times. Maybe she's Googling it wrong. It's not hard to find the NIS data. You just... But is this a Google session or a debate? Like, let's go. Come on.
but
So you think that the National Institute study is not reporting this? Like I can link
no.
link it to you.
No, I believe it. I'm just saying, like, there are so many more common sources that have different numbers talking about how male perpetrators are more common than the study that you're talking about, because I genuinely...
I got a little more for you. The U.S.
Can you
Department...
airdrop it to me? Is that...
Yeah, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has been tracking the data on child abuse and neglect since 1978 with something called the National Incident Study, NIS. The National Incident Study is a congressionally mandated periodic effort of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. There have been 4 such reports, the latest being the NIS-4, which came out 2010. This includes the breakdown. The NIS gathers data from all reporting agencies and any study will pull from these agencies because it's the congressional authority which is gathering that data. The methodology, the NIS uses a standard definitional framework for classifying child maltreatment, including both types of abuse and neglect. These are the legitimate numbers, and feminists have been hiding them under a rock because they don't want to talk about this issue.
I think that is an interesting theory. I think that a lot of the things that you're talking about go more into theory than into fact. And that's okay. I think that goes into what I'm saying is, like, just generally, that's why I'm here, is to debunk a lot of the myths.
Well, you're going to debunk that myth.
Well, again, you said you would send me the study. Cannot find the study that women are more likely to be perpetrators. It doesn't, I genuinely cannot find a single thing. I've been looking for 5-10 minutes.
You've been looking for what? Have you been looking on NIS?
I literally looked at exactly what you said, cannot find the numbers.
It's okay.
Now, because I'm not, this is not trying to be like in a...
She said, can you airdrop it to me? And he said yes. So you gonna airdrop it to her, Andrew?
Appeal to like authority, but I've done like debate my whole life, and like obviously like most of the time we tend to focus on the facts. So to me, if I can't understand the facts, that they don't exist of where I'm finding it, that is
I'm gonna read your comment out loud because I don't display them on... Oh, actually, it's in the chat. Never mind. It's probably a little bit harder hormonally, but here's the thing is when women dysregulate their emotions, it's not as dangerous as when men do. And what's a good way to put this? So it is true. There is like a emotional regulation issue. Z-Rabbit, did she say that she has 150 IQ? I must have missed that. But when men dysregulate their emotions, it's a lot more dangerous. So it skews like, so yes, women might fly off the handle more, but when men fly off the handle, it's a much bigger deal. I don't remember her saying she has a 150 IQ, but maybe she did.
a problem for me. Okay, I saw that. It didn't say the numbers that you were talking about.
Yes, it has them. This is from.
Scroll
There's no
down.
way you
Scroll down
read.
so I can read it.
How in the
I was
world?
just on that website and it did
how
not
in
say that
the
female perpetrators are
world?
more.
Oh, later on? Okay. Yeah, I started it a little late so we would be able to skip through like super chats and stuff if we wanted to.
Common.
Did you read that entire thing in 2 minutes? That is nonsense. It is huge.
My
There is
IQ
no
very
possible
high.
way you went through
I'm
those
a fast
numbers.
reader. I read like
That is the biggest.
300 books a
That
year.
is the biggest crock. There is no possible way you went through that in 2 minutes. It is massive.
Okay, you can think that. It's okay.
What do you mean think that? That is not humanly possible. Do you have magic
I'm
powers
smart.
that I'm
I'm pretty
unaware
smart.
of?
I don't know.
Pretty smart. What? Oh, come on.
She about to say
At
the
least be
IQ line?
honest in the debate. I mean, you could just say I didn't read
Not
it.
yet.
You say,
Yeah, I
I
did read it.
couldn't find the numbers that you're citing. There's no possible
Because
way
they
you
don't
looked
exist.
at that.
The numbers that you're talking about, there's
They don't
no,
exist.
female perpetrators are not more common than male perpetrators. So like again,
Uh-huh.
They're more common in very specific circumstances. So like, but all of these circumstances are circumstances where women are more likely to be in power over children. So you would expect it to be more women in those circumstances. But either way, this whole entire thing is like a non sequitur. This whole argument they've been having for the first 30 minutes is such a non sequitur.
I would prefer that we would stick to actual reality and facts.
That these are the actual realities and facts. I just showed you the study, right? The most likely reason why women are more likely to abuse than men, other
I
than the
agree
fact they're not being used, is checked on using force, is the UK's leading mental health charity. The Mental Health Foundation says that today, women are 3 times more likely than men to experience common mental health problems as well. Do you want to go over that?
About how men are more likely to experience mental health issues?
No, females, women are more likely to experience mental health issues.
What is your point?
They're more likely to report them too by a lot. So I don't know how I don't know how accurate those are. Like women are much more likely to seek out therapy or psychological assistance than men are. So
Yes.
Than men.
Well, what's your point?
Well, how is feminism combating this?
I would hope that we can continue to do a better job. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know that really struggle with their mental health, and a lot of, I mean, we don't have to get too deep into it, but I know that a lot of women who have experienced some abuse sexually at the hands of a man, and then that led them to have mental health issues. I also know men.
More than
where
soldiers
that's
have
the case.
PTSD?
No. PTSD is certainly an issue, but you can get PTSD from a number of things. So I would like to point out that like just saying one thing doesn't negate the other, right? So like just because I think it's important to talk about women's mental health doesn't mean men's mental health isn't important, because again, they are more likely to like, you know, unalive
And what about
themselves.
the fact that
That's very
women's mental health has
she's doing better than that Raphael guy from 2 nights ago. I'll give her that.
been astronomically growing in the negative direction under feminism, especially under the egalitarianism of gender. They report the happiest levels that women report are when they're married and in traditional gender
Have you
roles.
ever heard of the term ignorant, the phrase ignorance is bliss? I think
I'm sorry,
for a lot
do
of
I want to, I'm sorry, do I need to go and experience killing someone, right, to know that I don't want to experience killing someone?
what?
Well,
How does that have anything to do with
well,
what I said?
ignorance is bliss. It's
No, no.
possible, for instance, that I could kill someone and really love it, right?
Would I
That's
be
possible.
able to maybe talk about
Well,
it?
hang on, I want you to answer my question. Is that possible?
I just don't really understand how
Can you
that's
answer
related.
my question, though? If
Oh, that's a bad debate tactic. Even if you don't know how a question is related, you should answer them in good faith and then deal with the argument made after the question. Yeah, honestly, I actually feel like they're both a little unprepared for this, which is surprising because Andrew is usually super prepared. Oh, you mean the guy from he was not remotely prepared. That was so bad. Because he seems like a nice guy. Like he actually seems like a good guy, you know. He's happily married. I believe most of the women he brings on his show are married women. So he's talking to married women about what it is they like in relationships and marriage, which is all good. I do want to get into a couple of his episodes later. I would really like to talk to him because there were so many like easy refutations that he just he didn't have, and he would say things like, Andrew would say like, okay, well, if you don't want them to be red pilled, then what's your solution? And he would just be like, just not the red pill, whatever the opposite, the blue pill. What's the blue pill? The opposite of the red pill. Like that doesn't work in a debate. It works on TikTok. It doesn't work on a debate though. Yeah, he tried though, and he's only been a creator for like a month. So I think he just needs like some practice and maybe like some guidance. But yeah.
Isn't it possible that I could kill somebody and then just really like it?
But how does that in
Can you
any
answer
way...
my question, please? Stop negating the question. Just answer the question.
I just don't really want to talk about
I don't
murder.
care what you want to talk. I want you to answer my question, and I'll answer yours.
I'm not answering your question. Just go to
You're
your
not going to answer my question?
about murder? That's not related to this at all.
Yes, listen, it's logically...
Answer how you think I would answer.
Andrew, change the prompt to drugs or something. There are a lot of other things that you can not have experienced, but still know that you don't want to do. It doesn't have to be murder.
How you want me to answer.
What do you mean? I'm in a debate with you. I'm not in a debate with me.
I'm not Why would I answer this hypothetical question about...
Bro, that live video I made was absolutely fucking scuffed. My I think I fixed my webcam because I guess the program I was running on it just got an update, but it hadn't downloaded the update yet, so it kept cutting out. So I had to switch to my other one in the middle and restart Streamlabs. It was a disaster. But I edited it down, took out all the ads, and fixed everything. I'm going to upload it later.
About murder that has nothing to do with the... I was talking about...
Then if it has nothing to do with it, I'm going to look really stupid, right? So just answer the question.
So, go ahead and finish, because I would like to...
Yeah, so my question to you was, isn't it possible that I could kill someone and really like it? That would be yes or no. Waiting.
Yeah, I understand how this...
I mean, depends on who the person is.
works, but...
I need you to answer my questions. We're in a debate. I will answer your questions, but you also need to answer mine, or I can't get to the worldview. Yes or no?
Okay. This seems like a really moot point to me, and
Can you just answer it then? You've wasted like 2 minutes not answering the question.
This is like a 3-hour debate.
Yeah, why are you wasting time? Just answer the question.
3 hours is actually not a lot of time to debate all of feminism. It's not even close to a lot of time. Some of these debates go for... I've seen Andrew debate for like 6 hours before. So...
Look, Kylie, it's conceivable that you're going to propose hypothetical questions to Andrew to test
and I'll answer
his
them.
Logic and worldview. He'll answer it. I think it's a fair question if you can answer it.
As the moderator, sure. I suppose it is possible, yes, that if you did it, then you would enjoy it, although it makes me uncomfortable to talk about that.
Okay, but if this is the case, well, it would be possible for any human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, logically possible. So the thing is that knowing that this is true, that we could, I am actually ignorant, having never killed anybody, right? And I am in bliss about that. I, myself, am really, really happy that I've never done that, even though I could do that and could be very happy about that. The idea that you would make the point, ignorance is bliss, seems to entail...
Well, you didn't even let me get to talk.
Hang on. I just want to...
You're just talking over me.
I'll give you the question.
Oh, I have to wait for you to let me talk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So what I would say is this. When you say ignorance is bliss, all you're doing is alluding to the fact that people should engage in risky behavior.
I'm giving you 15 seconds, and if you don't give me the mic, I'm leaving. Go ahead. 15.
Oh my God, you're gonna leave?
Yeah.
Oh no.
No.
Uh-oh.
Is she? No,
Look,
she doesn't
Andrew's
leave.
finishing his point.
I was.
He was finishing his point.
She
No,
doesn't
I'm
leave.
serious.
Okay.
10,
but
15
hold on,
seconds.
hold on, but-
Because
She
she's been talking
actually
for the
did get
last
up
5
from the
minutes,
table at
so
the beginning.
It's really not
Well,
fair.
look.
You're not moderating very well here.
Well, to be fair, you guys got to allow...
We were actually doing really well, I think.
Hold on.
Until I was making a broader point, and then that wasn't allowed.
Well, it was at the expense of me speaking is the problem.
Hold on, just one moment. So, look, in conversations and especially...
Yeah, Davish, I don't think she's debated before. At least people will have some TikTok debates and then they'll think that they're ready to debate someone like Andrew Wilson, and it's just not true. It's not even close to true. Like, this is how they work. It can feel like you're getting bogged down, but you have to just fight through it. You'll get your chance, like, to fight back. She doesn't seem to understand that, but I don't know. Maybe she'll learn something. Maybe she'll go get better about it. I don't know.
Especially in a debate, look, sometimes people are gonna butt in. There's been a few times you've done it.
Yeah.
Andrew's done it. You've both done it. I'm trying my best here.
Well,
Just
that's why I'm
allow-
alerting you. I feel like at this point
But-
I would like to be able to speak my point because he rebutted
guys
me
have-
before I was able to give my point,
Oh.
and that's been happening the last 5
You
minutes.
asked
Not
me a
of
question.
tea.
Have you heard the term ignorance
Yes,
is bliss?
so I could speak and explain my point.
Yeah, so then I said yes and said, but here's the
and then
problem
talk
with that.
for about 3-4 minutes and then try to back me into corner
give
over
the
nonsense.
expression. When I ask you a question, you answer it. I expect a yes or no, and then you give a comprehensive answer like I was.
So can I give my explanation now?
Are you done, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay. go
Okay,
ahead.
so you going back like 5 minutes basically to what you mentioned was the term like, oh, women are happier in the home with a husband and kids, right? And so the term of ignorance is bliss, I think for a lot of women who do not have the opportunity to get an education and they are forced to be in the home, they don't know any other alternative. So some women are truly happy, but if that becomes the standard that women have to be in the home and have
Why the dichotomy? I hate this dichotomy. You can get a job, you can get an education, and you can raise your children. Like all of these things can happen at the same time. Like she's a content creator and a writer. She can raise kids while she's content creating and writing. Like we know that this is a very possible thing. Lots and tons of people work from home. Like there's so many different ways to do this. And worst case scenario, there's a sitter sometimes. You try to make it a family friend. You try to make it somebody in your family, like an aunt who's retired or grandma, grandpa. There are so many ways to do this without detracting from the family dynamic, the way Andrew is kind of proposing, like, oh, if they go to work, then you're outsourcing the children to some stranger. No, you don't. It doesn't have to be like that. It's not a dichotomy like that. There's a lot of nuance to it.
have kids and they don't have the opportunity to get an education, then of course that's going to be something that they think brings them joy because they don't have any other opportunities. And so like there's a lot of people in my mom's generation or my grandma's generation where like they were like, man, I wish I could have gone to school and like had an education and like picked someone, and they just fell into a marriage that either was abusive or like they weren't happy. And so I think that it's easier to report higher levels of happiness when you perceive it to be your only option is living in the home and having children and raising them.
Yeah.
So, but what do you have to say to that? Because
Yeah,
I'm
so
curious.
interestingly,
because it goes to your like underreported things like you were talking
first
about
of
earlier.
all, when you give anecdotal evidence like, oh, my mom and mom's friends.
Oh, I can give you an actual study if you want.
May have and I can refute it. I promise. But here's the thing: when you give anecdotal evidence and you say, well, my mom's friends, this and that, wish that they could have gone to school. There's
Yeah, you
also
can't do
anecdotal
anecdotes.
evidence, and an awful lot of it, and you can find it on YouTube right now. Of tons of women saying they wish that they had not gone and gotten a career, and wish that they would have instead deferred those childbearing years in order to have a family, because they see the happiness levels of their friends, colleagues, coworkers, things like this. That anecdotally is also just as true. But to even go on to the ignorance is bliss, I could say this and make this case about literally anything. I could say, well, I would love heroin, right? I've never taken it, but ignorance is bliss, right? Oh, I could say ignorance is bliss about literally anything, any drug,
Well, that's not the only
hang on,
statistic I have,
any
though.
I didn't cut you off, any risky behavior, any of this. I could say that about anything. What you're doing is saying, these women are happy. There must be some bad reason for that.
Oh, no, some women are happy.
No, you're saying
I agree.
these women are happy and there must be a bad reason for that, and the bad because they're doing
Not for all
traditional,
of them.
hang on, because they're doing traditional gender roles. So that must be bad. So we can explain that away by saying if they had all these negative experiences, that those women who have those negative experiences actually report a higher unhappiness level, those women would actually be happier. That's absurd logic, by the way.
Okay, sure. Well, again, I agreed with you on quite a few things there, but I would also like to say that, like I said at the beginning in my opening statement, the home being the most dangerous place for women, like there are women who are in abusive marriages, and so they have to convince themselves that they are happy because their husband is beating them or like assaulting them or harming their children. And when you're in that sort of situation, it's very difficult to be able to walk away from it, and oftentimes because you're isolated. And so, yeah, because the home is the most dangerous place for women, and 6 women are killed every hour in the home around the world. Those are very difficult realities that a lot of people don't want to grasp. And I'm not saying that every woman doesn't, isn't happy in the home. I think there are plenty of happy moms. I mean, my mom has worked and raised our children, her children, and my sisters and I, and like helped my dad out with like work. But yeah, for the most part, was a stay-at-home mom, and I think she really enjoyed it. But for me, at this point in my life, that's not something that I would like. And it's not to say that it's, it's a bad thing, but I think that some people are convincing themselves that they're happy when in reality it's a very difficult and abusive situation.
I'm going to have to go back to the NIS where I point out to you that, as you keep saying, that the most dangerous situation for women is in the home.
Well, that's according to the UN around the world, though,
okay,
not just here.
Okay, but inside the
That's, yeah, she brought that up earlier. We kind of got to keep the debate United States centric, because when you bring in the whole world, then you're getting some horrible places that are way worse for a woman. And that heavily skews the stats you're using. So she's really got to keep it more United States focused for the purposes of this specific debate. If you want to include Canada too, then, go for it. But even then.
The United States, at least, and inside of the Western nations, this is a commonality that they all share. It's not usually from the husband. It's usually from boyfriends of single women or single moms. Or as far as, for instance, cohabitation. Cohabitation leads to some of the worst outcomes for women when they're not married, and men. It leads to terrible outcomes for both. This idea that you have that when you say this, it's very loaded. It gives the impression that husbands are at home abusing their wives, and the opposite is actually true. The truth is that when women get divorced and they end up in these occupied relationships, that's when they end up with the most amount of abuse, not from their husbands.
Well, I think it's how we were talking about earlier about like confounding factors and other things that might the classification of things might change.
Well, her argument is, so there's like this concept that they've been arguing about, ignorance is bliss. There's a sort of companion concept that comparison is the thief of joy. And these two kind of go together in that basically what she's saying is they don't know what happiness is because they haven't actually experienced it. So they think that this is happiness. Like if there was only one flavor of ice cream, if it was just vanilla, we would all love that shit. But there's cotton candy and mint chocolate chip and cookie dough ice cream. So who the fuck eats vanilla? Right? But if there weren't any other ice creams, you would love vanilla ice cream so much. It would be so awesome. It would be like the bee's knees, if you like ice cream. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's where that companion quote kind of idea comes in, where comparison is the thief of joy. The more things we have to compare to in life, it's actually less likely that we're going to find happiness, because we're always going to be looking for something better, something newer, something fresher. And life is kind of like the ideal road is to find like a balance of those two concepts.
The results of studies. For this one, I'm looking at it, and it says facts and statistics on domestic violence DV, and it's mainly including intimate partner. So it's not talking about husband.
Well, I actually don't think you misinterpreted her, because she's kind of saying both things at once. She's saying that there are some women that they know they're unhappy, they just convince themselves to push through it. But she's calling that pretending to be happy. So she's kind of misinterpreting herself. And then on the other hand, she is sort of conceding that a lot of women are actually happy in that. It may have to do with their lack of comparison. It may just be, because that's what they really love. And a lot of women do, go out and see the world and do all kinds of stuff and get careers. And then they find out that they are happier in the home. A lot of them don't. It's just nothing ever exists in a monolith. And they're both saying that they're conceding that nothing exists in a monolith, but they're both still kind of acting like everything exists in a monolith. It's kind of, when you get really ideologically driven, you're sort of pushed into acting like everything exists in a monolith, even though you have to constantly say that it doesn't to get your points across, but you're acting like it does exist in a monolith. Like if Andrew had his way, it would just be Christian nationalism across the board and we would exist in a monolith. But he always concedes like, oh, well, not all women would like this, but if he was in charge, they would all do it, you know? It's an interesting conundrum.
or
That's why we
boyfriend.
separate them, right? So we would separate those two categories to see who's the more
But
abusive.
do you have a statistic?
Yes, I just gave it to you twice from the NIS.
But I know, but like I'm looking at it, and again, like I'm having.
Show me the numbers from the NIS that you're looking at. I actually don't believe you.
Oh, I'm not looking at that NIS right now. I was looking at it earlier, could not find the number you were talking about.
Yeah, but you looked
like,
at it
that
for
does not
1
exist.
minute.
No, I didn't.
You did. Those I literally pulled it direct from the NIS
I mean,
itself.
when there is a minor in the home and there is abuse, they look at both parents. And in that case, they are finding, according to this, the Domestic Violence Center data for Mankind Initiative, I'm finding
The Mankind Initiative?
Yeah, here,
The
I'll send it
cult?
to you.
The cult? The Mankind Initiative?
I have no idea what you're talking. I mean, this is like it's a statistic, like it's like
I don't know about
study
this
that's produced.
Yeah, the
Or I could
Mankind
go to the University
organization.
of Pennsylvania's
Yeah,
one
do
if you
that
want.
because the
Okay.
Mankind Initiative, as far as I know, is a Western cult which exists as a demasculating agency. Just so you know.
I might need some proof for that one.
Well, so it's saying analyzing 31,000. This is Penn today. So this does go to your point. It is just slightly above the spouse rate for abusive boyfriends. But again,
And those go reported much more, right? The marriage rates go reported much more than than these rates where you're living outside of the home with another man.
right. So
Because that's the more common living arrangement. Therefore, I am correct. It is true that the most dangerous situation is co-occupancy, not marriage.
I mean, there's different. I think it's difficult. You
That's true, but what's the point? It's still a man and a woman, and it's still dangerous. Whether or not they're married, I don't understand. Like, I understand what he's saying, and it's true. I don't understand the point, though.
You deal
Maybe
a lot in
they'll
absolutes,
get into
and
it
as
more.
a teacher, that's something that we are told not to do to facilitate like open communication. Is because you
You're a
typically say,
teacher?
"Well, this is true. This is true. That means I am truth. I am correct in saying this thing." But again, statistics are changing all the time. So
No.
actually, you're contradicting yourself
No, I'm
because
not
at the
doing
beginning
that.
you were like,
What I'm saying is
things
that
change.
I can negate these with logic by simply
Sure.
pointing this out.
I mean, you can negate
That if it is
anything
the
when you talk
case-
to yourself like you do because you're not really listening
when
to
it
the
is
words that are coming out of my
case-
mouth.
I'm listening
but-
to, do you want me to steel man your position? You just said to me that everything when it comes to statistics is fluid. I would tend to agree with that based on
Okay.
oncoming data which is coming
Right.
in. However, we still have to apply logic and inductive reasoning even when we're dealing with data sets,
I
especially.
didn't say we don't. I
Yeah,
agree.
So,
but
so those are unchanging, unconfounding variables, logic and reason. So if we're using those two things, we can easily point to this and say we know for sure that it's going to be underreported in cohabitation and possibly reported at least better from the marriage standpoint. That's probably true. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would really dispute that.
yeah,
which-
actually, I found a study to your point. Researchers have consistently found higher rates of violence in cohabitating compared
Yep.
to marital relationships, but in those cases, still, it is 95% of perpetrators are male. So, what do you have to say in terms of that?
yeah, okay.
That's exactly what my point was going to be. Whether or not it's cohabitation or marriage, the perpetrators are still mostly male. So
Okay, so here's what happens. What feminism has done, especially with the destruction of the marriage, is it has put women in the most vulnerable position, where now they leave their home with their husband, where the abuse rates are not nearly so high as pretentious feminists pretend they are, so that they can cohabitate with men, with other men who are strangers to them, strangers to their children. It puts their children at risk, and it puts them at actually higher risk than if they had stayed with their husbands in most cases.
Oh, okay. That makes sense as an explanation, but I think that, like, again, that's an anecdote that's probably not true for everybody. And
it's not an anecdote, but it is not true for everybody. But those would be the exceptions, and they would be an anecdote. I don't think, does she know what she has to know what an anecdote is.
the cases are pretty clearly in place. Like the evidence has shown that regardless of whether there's children in the marriage, 95% of the perpetrators are men. And we were talking about how it is likely underreported for female perpetrators, right, in marriages. I'm sure there are abusive wives, but I think that the point being is that it is it is definitely a pattern in terms of in the United States of the home being made unsafe because of men that live there. It doesn't have to be the husband, but it is men that are, being violent with the women that they are living with. And I think your point about how it's women that are picking these boyfriends that are abusing them is not fair, because again, you don't know men that are going to turn out to be abusive until they hit you one day. It doesn't start out with, if you went on a first date with a woman and she clocked you in the face, would you continue to date her? No, you wouldn't. It's the same with women.
Here's what we're going to do.
Okay,
Andrew, you give your response, then we're going to do prompt change.
Okay.
Okay, so okay.
But yeah, that was the end of my
I don't even understand this. Like, all of the stats back up exactly what I'm saying. You agree with me that what I'm saying is likely the most true case scenario, at least compared to all the
about
numbers.
boyfriends being more abusive.
Yeah, can I finish? Right?
Oh, I was just
I didn't
clarifying.
cut you off. So the thing is like, look, as we look at this data, the data backs up everything that I just said, especially when it comes to cohabitation. You say, well, it's not women's responsibility that they're picking these men. It's like, well, women are initiating most of these divorces. For one, they're leaving their husbands. They put themselves in this confounding situation where now they're being abused by strange men, often because they want them as sexual partners or other things like this. You say, well, that's true that the abuse happens inside of these places, male, whether there's children or not. Great. But when it's a cohabitation event where children are involved, you're now putting your children at risk because the risk skyrockets for abuse. Skyrockets for abuse of those children. No wonder men don't want to get married to modern women if they're going to get divorced, and their women are going to put their children in an abusive situation, right? And that's what the stats show more than anything. Not that women are being abused, but that when they have authority over children, they are putting them in situations where they are abused or abusing them themselves. That's what's actually happening.
We do have to change prompts.
Oh, finally. I need to hear them talk about something else, because that conversation was just going absolutely nowhere. We all beat each other up. Okay. But now what? Like,
Andrew, I think you wanted to perhaps discuss patriarchy and force doctrine.
Sure.
Would you like to get into that?
force doctrine. Here we go.
Yeah, so I'll give you my definition of patriarchy first. It's a historic definition. It means rule of the father. I often will short phrase this to from the father. Usually it operates around something which is patrilineal lineage rather than matrilineal lineage, though not always. You can have patriarchies where there's matrilineal lineage. You can find this in Judaism and other places like this. When I talk about patriarchy, I'm broadly speaking, at least in modernity and in the last 100 years, about men being in charge of general systems. We could just say men being in charge of general systems, head of the household, head of the family, things like this. My view is that patriarchy is always going to end up being the default, especially the more feminism there is. You'll push more people into the patriarchy role, and here's why. Because of force doctrine. Force doctrine is a doctrine which I came up with, which tries to describe a phenomenon which you yourself are going to have to concede is true. That half of the world right now, if men decide to, they can basically exterminate every single woman inside of their nations, and there's not a damn thing women can do about it. We can find this in most of the Middle Eastern nations. We can find this basically anywhere that we look, right? They can't actually do anything about it. Also, when it comes to rights, rights are a social construction, product of the mind because of the
Yeah, we have a very, very big parenting crisis. We have a birth rate crisis. And Andrew would blame it on feminism. I don't know what she would blame it on. She probably just doesn't care. I think there are ways to fix it. And personally, I think the biggest contributor to this problem was the sort of sexual revolution. And I'm not saying I didn't partake, okay? I was a degen, all right? But it has not been good for society in general for us to be so open and free with our relationships and sexual partners to the point where we start to value them less. And then when we get in these relationships that do involve children or potentially creating children, we're just like chickens with our heads cut off because we're not being raised to raise people. So it is a big problem. And yeah, so Andrew's worldview would fix the problem, but at the expense of a lot of good things. I don't even know if her worldview has a fix for the situation. I've only heard a few feminists speak that have like actual prescriptions to fix the situation without doing Andrew's plan of like just wiping away liberalism and feminism forever. Well, yeah, we have a lot of teenagers in adult bodies, and that comes from the fact that we're not growing up. We're just continuing to do the experiment until we're like 35. That like college experiment phase of our lives where we're teenagers and then we're young adults for a little bit and we kind of like experiment with different things and figure out who we are. We're doing that until we're like 40 now. And it doesn't take that long to do that. But for some reason, we're doing it until we're like 40 years old now. And that is all like kind of a vibes thing. And that definitely needs to change.
That they are not inherent. And since this is the case, force is what is the practical applicator. And if men decided to, by force, take away women's rights, women cannot do anything about it. The opposite is not true. If women wanted to take away men's rights, and men didn't want to let them, they could not. And because of this force doctrine application, women's rights all come from men, not inherently from themselves. Therefore, feminism is a lie, complete lie. That's force doctrine. I don't know if you have anything to say about it.
Well, aside from the fact that that is genuinely a terrifying idea, I think that the idea that men could just take away our rights and wipe us away is why feminism is necessary, is because we are trying to get enough men, I suppose, on our side, if you think about it in terms of like a military occupation, so that that wouldn't happen. Because I think that it is possible for men to take away our rights at a blanket pace. But I don't agree with your conclusion based off that premise, though. I don't believe that women inherently don't have rights that is given to us by men. And the reason why is because I believe that.
Ooh, this one's rough because actually nobody has rights. Rights don't exist. They're not real. Understand that, everyone, if you're watching, if you watch this later. None of us have rights. Rights are entitlements granted to you by a third-party enforcement. There's no such thing as natural rights. You don't have if you're alone in the forest, you don't have a natural right to life. That right is enforced by an enforcement arm. Andrew's making the claim that will always and must be men. I don't know where she's about to go with this. We're going to find out.
That all human beings inherently should have equality and human dignity, which is although I'm not Catholic, it's a term that was very much focused on in my Catholic high school. I went to public school and then Catholic high school.
But it's an axiom?
About human dignity.
It's just axiomatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like important though to me, because I think that because the societies that we have created have necessitated the need, or have created the need for laws and for structure in government. And so there are many philosophers that have talked about how important it is to have government, right? But because of the fact that men can take it away does not mean that men thus give to us, right? Like, men are not gods. It is something that is inherent to each of us, that we should have the ability to live and self-govern, have autonomy. And I think the fact that
should is a fine claim to make, but that's an ought claim. It's not an is claim. While yes, we should be guaranteed certain rights, those rights are granted to us by some kind of enforcement arm. Andrew is saying it's men. You could make the argument that it's just government in general, which does usually end up being mostly men. But she's conflating a couple of things right now that aren't the same.
That men could take it away actually goes to my point about how a lot of them do, and a lot of them try to take our autonomy and make us feel unsafe and harm us, which you were previously refuting, but actually seems like you agree with me on that it's a possibility for men to do that.
No, it's descriptively true. I'm not giving an ought, I'm giving a descriptive reality.
But because it's a descriptive
Hang on.
reality,
The truth is that you appealed to patriarchy.
I have no idea what I have not said appeal to patriarchy. What are you talking about?
When you said the whole goal is to get more men on our side, you're appealing to a patriarchy.
Well, it's not the whole goal, but is a goal. Yes, I should correct myself.
And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to appeal to the very demographic which can take away your rights at any time, conceding that if you do not have them on your side, you cannot maintain your rights. That is not ever true of men, which is why you'll always end up with a default patriarchy, especially the more feminist push. I don't know if you're looking at the modern world
it's not
now.
it's the modern world, because it's not necessarily a default.
It's always going to be a default.
But in a lot of tribes, they were very matriarchal, and like women were at the head of the family.
There's never been a matriarchy in the world.
That is not true at all.
Give me one.
Teeny, tiny little tribes, but he's right. There hasn't been an actual matriarchal society in the sense of women were the enforcers of rights in a general broad sense. That hasn't really happened. There's been matrilineal societies where ownership and family is seen as being passed down through the woman's line as opposed to the man's line. But that's a totally different thing.
Okay, I will look it up for you.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'll refute it. Watch.
Well, indigenous people largely have.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'm going to refute it.
I think you should just use the term indigenous.
I think you should just use the term Indian. I don't see any problem with it at all.
Oh, I think they do.
I don't think so. Indians themselves call themselves Indians often.
Indigenous people in the United States do not call themselves Indians.
Yes, they do. Just like black people call themselves black people, not African American. What are you talking about? Do you think that all black people call themselves African American?
So there's actually two different types of black people. The black people that have slaves as ancestors that were brought here involuntarily, they generally like to refer to themselves as being black. African Americans would be other people that immigrated after. They actually usually prefer to go by whatever country they came from. They're Nigerian or they're whatever they are, Kenyan, etc. So he's kind of right and kind of wrong.
This is a moot point, so I'm not going to even go into this with you.
Well, you're the one who wanted to tone police to say that I had to say Native American instead of Indian.
So basically, I'm pulling up the matriarchs for you. And there are obviously a number of societies that have thrived, and there's a whole document, but in China, in Costa Rica, the Bribri people.
Yeah, name one. Any of them that you think is a matriarchy.
Okay.
A matriarchal society.
They have a society with an estimated 12,000 to 35,000 members. That is a matriarchy, and that is Bribri in Costa Rica. Or you could look at there's a Kenyan tribe that's Umoja that are all matriarchies. They have women at the helm that are leading their.
Why the Bribri tribe society is often described as matrilineal. It's not actually a matriarchy. Women are the heads of households responsible for passing down culture and land, but the men have the most important role as the authority officers of the tribe. They are the ones who defend, and they have chiefs too, male chief. That's not a matriarchy.
Well, I found a different article. We could just go back and forth all day.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So the Bribri, so this is the intercontinental cry. Bribri, I don't know if you speak Spanish, but Bribri un matriarcado moderno. So I speak a little bit, I'm not like fully fluent. But anyways, and they're talking about how the clan structure means that tribal lineage is passed down through the mother.
That's matrilineal.
Yes, but and also in the home, I know the difference.
But if something is matrilineal, doesn't make it a matriarchy.
I know, but they're saying that women in this article play a primary role in government as well.
Yeah, but see what you did there? You did a smuggle. They play a primary role in government. That doesn't make it a matriarchy.
But it's a system. Do you know what a matriarchy is, though?
Yeah, it would be women broadly in charge of all of the systems.
It's a system of social structure where they hold a lot of power
They
And
hold the majority power.
And that's what
and the decisions of the men are at their behest in any.
But that's what the article just said of the Brewery tribe.
No,
I don't know. Again, I just found a different
Listen,
article. So
any
like, I don't know if I should
matriarchy-
speak to like what's going on.
Any
'cause I haven't
matriarchy that
been
I've
there,
ever
but-
investigated, which is supposedly a matriarchy, we find very quickly that men are in the prominent positions of authority on force, which means that any matriarchy
that
is
means-
living at the behest of the men. That's it.
So is your point that men are better then because they have brute force, or like what's your point
No,
that
my
men should be in
point-
charge governmentally?
No, my point is I'm not giving an ought. We have to agree first to a descriptor. The descriptive truth
Right,
is
okay.
that it is, in fact, the case that women have to appeal to men for all of their rights, period, by your own admission. That's why you're trying to get them on your side. Because if you don't have them, they can basically cage women up if they wanted to, and there's nothing women
Right,
can
but
do
that
about
doesn't
it.
mean that men are therefore better or should be in charge. Like I'm confused. Like what's the actual point? Like the conclusion that you're making
The
here?
point here is that men being in charge is obviously and clearly they're very benevolent, because at any time they so choose, they can lock all women up. There's nothing they can do about it. And the reverse is not true, which is so interesting. You're literally at the mercy, women are at the mercy globally and always have been, of men. And yet we're monsterized and demonized by feminists. That's what we're literally
you're saying-
considered demons by feminists. You did it by your own admission today with your own stats, trying to make us out to be sexually assaulting monsters. Didn't even know the counter stats.
Didn't say that. Never.
Yeah,
said
that's
that
what
you
it
guys are-
appears to be, though, from the onlooker's perspective.
I feel like you have these generic like talking points that you
Mm-hmm.
try to apply to feminists, but I haven't like really been very reactive or calling you names. I'm trying not to. I have, but
You have acted exactly like a feminist today, madame.
okay, but I feel
Okay,
like
nobody's going to be confused about that at all.
All right.
The whole snobbery.
I'm not insulted
towards,
by that.
The whole snobbery
Okay, can we skip the meta conversation about the conversation and just get back to the conversation, please?
towards authority. You're going to do what I want. The finger clap thing. You did the whole feminist trope, the entire thing.
Okay.
But what I would like is a refutation here.
Can I speak now?
Can you agree?
I feel like it's my time
Can
a
you
little
agree that it is the case that women have to appeal to men for their rights and not the other way
bit.
around?
I will not ever agree to the fact that we should appeal to men for our rights.
Not should. What is she? Okay, she must not. She doesn't know the difference between is and ought claims. You have to know. You got to know this stuff. Come on.
I think that is an
that they have
inherently
to.
misogynistic
They have
question.
to.
Have to?
Have to.
No. Do not
Okay, well
agree.
then where do rights come from?
They should be inherent to every person, but again, I think I should be able to like
Inherent.
lead this.
You can make
Okay,
your
so give me a
point.
second because again, like you've just been a little bit insulting the last few minutes, so I feel like when that happens, it's just like a good change of pace is important. But
Well, I do need to keep it on the topic at hand, but
which again, where were we? Can you
Rights.
repeat the question?
Rights. I
were
asked you where
asking
rights come from.
where rights come from. If you can
Yeah.
address that
Okay, but then I get
or
to speak
respond.
more.
Yeah, you can.
Okay,
Yeah, but it's
okay.
on forced
You
doctrine
can
and rights.
respond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the fact that we're debating a topic that you came up with is a little bit strange personally, but I was
Why?
going to say that I think that rights are inherent. I think that they should be
What?
related to all people, just like the fact that we are human beings. We shouldn't have to appeal to any person for authority. And again, the fact that men are stronger, bigger, more powerful doesn't mean that they give or take away people's rights. I'm not religious necessarily, but I think if I was, I would probably tell you that I think God is the person that, you know, relates and who gives people their human dignity and rights, but I think it's inherent. I think that we should all have the right to live and be free of violence, and I think that those who offend and try to put people in cages, those are the people that should be jailed. Like, I don't think that that's a blanket statement.
Yeah. So I would just, okay, you keep on saying rights should be inherent. That doesn't tell me anything about where rights come from. Where do rights come from? Where do we ascribe rights
Well, I think
to
that you're thinking
ourselves?
very like United States, like government centric.
Anywhere. You can pick anywhere on planet. I don't care where you pick.
Okay,
Where
so-
are rights coming from?
They are coming from the set of people that are in charge, the government. And to your point, that's the patriarchy. However, I agree.
Okay.
So I concede to that point. However, I'm saying that that does not mean that men, since they create the ability to give people like rights and take it away, that doesn't mean that men it should be that way. It shouldn't. It like, I don't know if that makes
So
sense.
men have been guaranteeing your rights the entire time you've been alive.
No, that's definitely not true.
Well, I don't understand. I thought that you just
But
said
also, like-
rights come from the government.
but also,
The
like-
government is the patriarchy. The
but-
patriarchy then is giving you rights, right?
Right, but like the government isn't inherently like the government is influenced by patriarchy, but it's not like all men making decisions like in the past it was.
Would you say it's mostly in charge by men?
Yeah, but again, like I think that your points that you're making are very misogynistic. Like I think the point of what
That
you're
doesn't,
saying
look, listen,
is like we should be grateful to
I think the points you're making are very misandrist. I mean, that doesn't tell us
But I don't hate
anything.
men, so that's not a very
I don't
good
hate
insult.
women.
Okay, but your question inherently is rooted in the fact that you think that there is male superiority and that men are in charge.
Descriptively, men are stronger than women, yeah? Descriptively.
Yes.
You're not going to argue that point, right?
On average, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, on average. Well,
There's a well, I'll watch it later. There's a good thing on that.
I mean, it's a strong average, though.
Sure.
Yeah, like, I mean, teenage soccer teams are beating, female pro player teams, right?
Sure,
You agree
yes.
that that's the case? Okay, great. So if that's the case, and we can agree, and you agree that the governments of the world are patriarchal, then you have to concede that the patriarchy is giving you your rights right now.
I will never concede that. And the reason why is because I think that that is rooted in the idea that women should be grateful. Like, you're telling me that I should essentially be grateful to you for the fact that I'm not in a cage right now and that someone's not assaulting me as we speak. Like, that does not mean
No,
that
how
I
about
should
just
be grateful to
your
you.
right to free speech?
I don't know why they fight so hard on this. You can concede all of this and still have feminism. I don't get it. Like, it's obviously descriptively true that throughout human history, everyone's rights have come from whoever is the enforcement arm of society. And that's pretty much always been men because we're stronger. That's why we're the enforcement arm. But we still do generally uphold and protect those rights when we're convinced of them, or just out of a sense of duty or virtue. And if the virtue involves some feminist ideologies and thoughts, then that coexists. She can concede this point and still make her point. I don't get why they all do this. They all fight this force doctrine thing so hard. They don't have to. You can concede it and continue on. It's not a big deal. It's no big deal.
And the fact that it's enforced
But
by men,
men-
the patriarchy is the ones giving you that by your own admission.
Listen, so my theory is the way it should be. This is what I think. This is the way that it was before we had colonization and all the imperialism and stuff. There's a blanket statement, right? Or there's a blanket right to life, to autonomy, to all these things, right? That are just given to you by the nature of being human. And there are certain entities and people and oppressive regimes that then come in and they try to take those things away from you.
Yeah,
now,
Warring
because
Tribes.
No, nothing is inherent. You're not inherently granted anything just by existing. Oh God.
Warring Tribe theory.
Well, because they give you those things, or because the government gives you the right to exist now, right? Doesn't mean it's a benevolent doesn't mean the patriarchy is benevolent because it is currently giving me these rights, and I'm not like sitting and trapped in my house like I am in a different country.
What would make it malevolent?
What would make it malevolent?
Yeah.
I think in places like
I'm
like
talking about
Afghanistan,
here in the United States, which is a patriarchy by your own admission, giving you rights. What would make it malevolent?
I think that there are a lot of current things that are malevolent, like in legislation and things like that, that are, like attacks on bodily autonomy and like the overturning, like the Dobbs decision or the
But you would
overturning
consider
Roe v.
your
Wade.
First Amendment a benevolent right, your Third Amendment,
But
your Fifth Amendment.
I think these things are all inherent. Like I don't understand. Like just because it's written in by the government doesn't mean that it should inherently be.
It can't be
benevolent.
Listen, that's a contradiction. You can't say it's inherent and the government gives them to us.
No, the government.
That's a contradiction.
The government does, but it doesn't mean anything. Like we should already have these things. Like just like if I.
How do you have them? How do you have them absent a government?
Being. You should just be able to walk around and be free.
How? How do you have that without force? How?
I mean,
how is it even possible?
I think you're looking at it through.
She's making a weird libertarian. Yes, they do. Thank you, Hannah. But yeah, your rights are always enforced. You don't even really have rights. Like I mentioned this a minute ago, you have entitlements that are granted to you by a force arm of a society. If you're alone in the woods, you don't have a right to life. Like a bear could come up and kill you, a tree could fall on you. There's no right to anything. She's She's making like a libertarian anarchist, like ANCAP non-aggression principle argument right now, but she's a leftist, so she can't make any of those arguments because they're fundamentally the opposite of her entire worldview. Neither of them are correct, in my opinion. They're both untenable positions. But right now, she's fighting like a logic with just like pure stubbornness. And this is a point that you can concede and still have most of feminism. I don't know why she's fighting this so hard.
lens of like imperialism, and I don't think that like force was always necessary. It hasn't always been
Why do you
necessary
keep
to
saying I'm
conquer other
looking at it
people.
through a lens of? I literally
at-
told you my lens of force doctrine, explained it
Right, but you're
descriptively.
looking at
Has
it-
nothing to do with imperialism. It has to do with this. You're
looking
walking
at it in the
around
lens of
and there's
modern
no
society,
government.
though.
If you're walking around, there's no government. Where do your rights come from then?
Okay, this is just like such a silly
Please
question.
answer the question.
She doesn't have an answer
So
because obviously
if
they come from government.
if there's no government and I'm
Yeah.
walking around, my right to be alive, my right to find a
Can
partner,
someone come around and
my
kill?
right to
Can someone come around and kill you?
Yes, but in that case, there have historically always been ways of punishing people who take those away. So the people who take them away
You mean
are
like a
offenders.
government?
Hold on, just let her
A
finish. Go
government?
ahead.
Go ahead.
Hold on, Andrew.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The people who take those things away from you, if they don't decide to take it away, it doesn't mean that they're good, right? So like a really horrible example that for a lot of women is true is if I am a woman and I have not had intercourse with anybody and a man is my friend and he decides that he's not going to take my virginity from me, does that mean he is a good person inherently by not assaulting me? No, it doesn't, because that should be the standard, right? And so if someone comes in and they take it away and then they tell me that they can or they can't in the future, right? That's essentially to me what you're saying is just because the government is giving me the right to walk around and have this conversation with you today means that I should be thankful and I should, not be concerned with things, and that you guys are actually benevolent. The patriarchy is benevolent because I'm not in a cage, because I'm not being assaulted.
Yeah, that's not what's being
So
said.
that
But
is-
anyway, can you answer my question though? If there's no government, where do your rights come
Yeah,
from?
he didn't say that.
I think we've already been over this. I think
No,
you've asked me quite a few
you didn't actually
times.
answer listen, what you did was
I mean, I've already told you human
What-
dignity, so.
Well, human dignity, you can't account for dignity in a secular worldview. What is dignity? It's just whatever you think dignity is. So tell me this real quick. You have rights. They're
Okay,
inherent.
are you talking about legal, moral, or human? Let's omit legal, right? Because I'm talking about in a hypothetical
Literally
society.
any.
Okay, moral and human rights.
Yeah.
And for me, it's rooted
Yeah.
in the philosophical natural law.
Natural
theory.
law is Catholic. You don't believe in Catholicism. You would have to have God to back up natural law.
Okay, but that is what I developed my beliefs around because I used to believe in
No,
God.
that's it. If
Oh, God. You can't be like, I'm not a Christian, but I'm going to argue from a Christian epistemic foundation. She's got to watch some Not So Erudite and learn either be a Christian feminist or don't be a Christian feminist. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Jesus.
If you don't appeal to God for your natural rights, you're making a naturalist fallacy.
Okay, I
That's
believe
a
in God.
fallacious argument.
How do you know that I don't believe in God?
Because you told me.
Okay, well, I think this is like a really ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous? So where do you get your rights from if they're not from God?
Okay, so again, I
She's
still subscribe
Googling
to
where
the
do
human
rights
rights
come-
theory,
come
which
from.
is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If we're not going to go talk about God or naturalism, right? Which is that every human being has universal, inalienable rights that are fundamental to each person, and so
Yeah.
this is what the UN subscribes
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Even in the religious worldview, it's just whatever that it's all just random, and it's all what she's going to cite is just another thing written on paper by person saying we should have these rights, but where they should come from is always going to be the enforcement arm of whatever society decides that these are the rights you have. They do sometimes. I wish it was Erudite, or I wish it had been Andrew when Erudite was on instead of Jim Bob. Erudite did kind of fumble the force doctrine thing a little bit too, but she was doing a lot better than this girl is.
And stuff like that, regardless of whether there is a government in place or not. So is that sufficient to you?
No, that's an.
But she did way better on all the other points. For some reason, almost every single left-leaning or feminist debater, they just cannot wrap their head around the force doctrine and the idea that rights are not actually inherent. They're entitlements. Exactly. And where did the kings come up with those rights? In their mind, you know?
Axiom. That's so all you're just saying is
Or God told them. But when you say God told you, you mean God told somebody 2,000 years ago and they wrote it down and said that God told them. So it all just comes down to we had an idea and we wrote it down.
I think we have inherent rights because I think we have inherent rights.
I think we have inherent rights because we are human beings who deserve to be treated with compassion, love, and respect. And I don't think you think.
We might deserve that. She's kind of right. We might deserve that. But it is the case that we don't inherently have that. Maybe we should have it, but it's not the case that we inherently do.
Think that. So
yeah, but
that's pretty wild.
But the question comes in here. Let's say that a group of people doesn't believe in these inherent human rights, right? They don't believe in them.
I mean, there are definitely groups that have.
Yeah, they just don't believe in these inherent.
But for certain people.
Yeah, they just
happens
don't.
all the
so
time.
What is it that protects those inherent rights for you?
Well, you're right. There is typically like a system in place of
Force.
It's not force per se.
All force, right?
It's always
like,
force.
Anything that's
but
not
like
force
there's a
that
way to
protects
like
your rights.
isolate those people.
With
yeah.
what? Force?
I mean, not necessarily. Not
What
every
else could you
arrest is
isolate
made
them
through
with
force.
if they don't want to be isolated?
Well, not every arrest is made through force, right? Like they might.
Yeah,
just...
well, actually, all arrests are made through the implicit threat of force.
Yeah, if it's not force,
Either
it's
you
the
come
threat
with
of
me
force.
or else, right?
Sure.
So that would be force, right? You would agree with that? The implicit.
Yeah, I mean, just this inherent topic to me is very, just like violent and seems like a moot point. Like, but I mean, I'm kind of, I feel like we've talked this through.
No, I haven't talked it through yet.
But you can continue. I mean, I don't really have much else to say
Yeah,
on
I know,
this.
but
I've already like
it's a
clarified.
critique of your worldview so that we can understand who you're appealing to for these so-called rights you believe everybody has.
Yeah, and without force, a lot of those animals would eat us. And then where's your rights then?
In this case,
Sure.
it sounds like you're banking on force from men
In a
to
bear's
protect your
stomach.
rights.
I'm
How are you
banking on
not?
that.
How are you not banking on the force of men to protect your rights? If you say they're inherent, but all these inherent rights require force.
Well, also men is a generalization. I mean, again, there are a lot of people who are currently working to enforce the system of government that we have. It's not just men, but okay.
They all rely on male force, don't they?
I just told you that wasn't true. I mean,
Okay, can you tell me how that's not true? Like
Well-
what agency of government doesn't rely on male force?
No. My point is it's not all exclusively men. There are men and women and everyone else as well that work to protect people here. Like,
yeah.
like in the army, it's not like if you're using force, right? The army isn't just male troops. So like you're saying male.
Yeah, there's women who aren't allowed in combat for the most part, almost ever, unless it's by accident, who are in the military as paymasters and things like this, but they're not the executors of force. There's not female armies being fielded to protect
again,
people's
like,
rights.
I'm not super interested in this line of questioning because it just seems like
Why do you
inherently
think I care
misogynistic
if
question.
you're interested in it? I want
Well,
to
I
know
think-
the worldview.
I think you care because like it's your podcast and like I'm kind of ready
Okay,
to
well,
move
you know
on.
what? In your next argument, I'll just say, well, I'm just not very interested.
Okay.
Like,
then I'll
what does
just
that
talk
do?
about my
Like,
point.
what does that do?
Well, you're not really letting me talk or like,
I'm just asking you basic questions. You refuse to answer them. That's it. I just wish you would actually answer the questions, and then we could get somewhere, but you just refuse to. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, her calling this line of questioning misogynistic is crazy. That's crazy. There are things Andrew can say that are misogynistic. We haven't gotten there yet. You know?
Okay, so what does that mean? You're like, well, I just explained it, when he didn't actually explain anything. And then we get to the root of it. So what you keep doing is appealing to patriarchy for your rights by saying, I would never say I appeal to patriarchy for my rights. You say, hey, I want to appeal to men because we need men in order
Brian.
to protect us from the
Hi,
patriarchy, which means you're appealing to men for your rights. I just like, it seems like it's a big circle, so I'm just trying to decipher it out. That's it. That's it. Okay, I'm not gonna engage anymore. All right.
I already told you I just don't have anything else to say on this. So I feel like we've had a good conversation. I mean, I've enjoyed hearing what you have to say, but I just don't have
Yeah,
anything
well, I
else.
mean, I would have enjoyed, like actually critiquing the view, but since you don't make the view
You already have for like
available,
the last like 15 minutes.
you've just been very evasive and you've been very unwilling to actually answer questions, even when you've contradicted yourself. You want to acknowledge it. So
Okay, well, we can take a little.
Yeah, I'll have a smoke.
There's more prompts, but we'll take some audience questions. There's some super chats that we can get to. So
That's the thing, is you can concede that argument and it's no problem, but none of them will. I don't get it. You can concede that argument and still make all of your points for feminism. They just hear that and it's like a shutdown. They just cannot. Well, she just has a fundamental misunderstanding about the concept of rights, which is unfortunate. And that's kind of her issue. But then you'll get to some other people and they do understand the concept and they still just won't even concede the force doctrine point because it's like ingrained in their ideology. They think that if they concede that point, they'll have to just continue to concede any other point they might try to make. But it doesn't matter. Like, you can appeal to men for feminism, and that's fine. It's fine. We'll probably give you most of it. Like, that's fine. The best argument I've ever heard against it is Erudite's stolen valor argument, in that, like, all these other men are taking credit for what a few men do to grant rights to everyone, but that few is still mostly men. And it's fine. It can be men. We can be nice. That's fine. Like, feminism, this is a good point Erudite makes, that patriarchy, which is sort of a natural order of the enforcement of rights, and feminism can coexist. All right, this is now it's going to get funny because we're going to get some chatters, and these people are unhinged. Not like my chat. I like you guys.
Thank you.
I've never had a chat before. Thank you for all coming out, hanging out. I really appreciate it.
I hear my children are preventing me from freedom. If only these kids weren't alive, I could be happy.
All right, Just Gerald, thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, and if you guys are enjoying the stream, be sure to like the video, please.
That's a bit extreme, Gerald.
Make sure to, if you're watching on Twitch, go to twitch.tv/whatever, drop us a follow and a Prime sub. And, oh, that's weird. Did that not go through? Okay, gonna get the soup chats here. We have Cole Marshall. Why would anyone, this is from earlier, this came in.
I saw this. That's funny.
Why would
This super chat is because she did almost leave at the beginning of the debate. She almost rage quit 1 minute after the opening statements ended. And I really actually thought she was going to rage quit. I'm glad she didn't, and they calmed down and they've been able to talk for the most part. She does kind of shut down whenever she gets kind of backed into a corner, but
why would anyone care if you leave? Who are you? You're supposed to be defending your worldview. W. Andrew from Cole.
oh yeah, whatever makes you join to chat.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm just a lowly, tiny, brand new content creator. So, and I don't think I would ever make chat membership only. I want to hear what other people have to say, even if they're just stopping by,
My name's Kylie Brewer. I'm sort of like an up and coming like activist type person. I feel like I have my goal here was to educate just about feminism generally. So I'm sorry if that hasn't like held up to your standards. But yeah, if I do leave, I think the debate would end. So I think that might be why people would care. But anyways, thank you for your comment.
We have Chaotic Fuzz. Why are you letting her hold the debate hostage? She's being a child saying, if I don't get my way, I'll leave. It's disrespectful.
Yeah, that was a bad look. That was a pretty bad look.
to the platform.
And yeah, Hannah, there
listeners?
aren't a lot.
I think it's disrespectful to be talked down to the way I am.
There are some, though.
So that is why it's not just about like leaving and
Oh,
holding
nice.
the platform hostage. It is
I watch a
rather
lot of
fact
modern day
protecting
debate.
my integrity.
I haven't
and I will
watched
never
many
let
on the
myself be in a
channel
place where I
yet,
feel
but I'm
unsafe
sure I will
or,
eventually.
like I'm being belittled.
But my channel
so
is
if
like
that
a
does
week
happen
old,
and continues to happen, I will leave, and it's not a reflection of the platform or anything. It's just like for me as well. So.
Okay. We have Lucas here. Ma'am,
Oh,
kindly
Lucas
address
is the
your
worst.
emotional dysregulation. It's unimpressive, but more
He
importantly,
uses like
a telltale
ridiculously
sign of
huge words
intellectual
and
mediocrity
sentences for no
flailing
reason.
away. Wow, a lot of big words here, Lucas. In the undertow of cognitive dissonance, fallacious logic, and ultimately a fully
It is funny
metastasized
when they quit
mind
less than
virus.
1 minute in.
Do you want to respond
That
to that
does
from
make me
Lucas?
laugh.
Sure. Lucas, it sounds like you pulled out your thesaurus
Oh yeah,
for
I've
this,
watched
so
Andrew on
congratulations
Modern Day
that.
a
But I
lot,
would like to say
for sure.
my IQ is relatively pretty high. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
I
talk about where I
probably
went
agree
to
with
an Ivy
him
League,
on
but that
like
doesn't
5
matter.
to
If you disagree with me, you're going to
10%
hate what I have
of
to
the
say
things
regardless
that
of
he
whether I'm
says.
intelligent or not
A
intelligent.
lot of his
But thank you for watching
prescriptors
regardless.
are
Thank you,
true,
Lucas, for the message.
but
Little Miss
the
Feminist isn't
conclusions
interested in
he comes
debating,
to,
only
I'm not really
educating.
interested
Bad
in
faith debate.
most
Do you
of
want
the
to
time.
respond to that? Thank you, Rezel, for the
Maybe
super
if I
chat.
was a Christian,
For
I
me,
would
like a
be,
debate is about exchange of knowledge. So if it
but
doesn't become that, and it feels more
I'm
like
not sure.
an ad hominem attack on me, I just will not talk.
Well, what a debate is to me is the refutation of ideas, or it can be the sharing of knowledge, also the refutation of ideas. We're here to debate feminism, the idea of debating feminism. I'll even grant one point that my opponent got, which was me dunking on me, right? Was that I confused the Mankind Initiative
is
with the Mankind
disheartening.
Project, right? So that's one thing.
Cool.
One thing I even did, right?
I
get it.
understand
Dunked on myself,
where it's
right,
coming
by
from.
misspeaking on one of these things. So there's a concession, but here's what I won't do. What I won't do
There's a lot
is let you
that
cross your arms and throw a fit and refuse to engage. When you go,
the
nope, I'm just
left,
not going
and
to
by the
engage anymore.
left,
And it's
I
like,
mean
well, then we're not having a
liberals.
debate
I don't
anymore.
mean
So I'd like
leftists.
to get back to the actual debate.
I should be more clear.
And
I
I'd
mean
like to
liberals.
I mean, I really
continue
like
with
don't have
horse
as much of a stake in
doctrine.
this as
Have
you do.
done,
So like I'm
I don't
genuinely,
have any
leftists have
if we
done a
end
lot
right now,
also
I'm more than
to
happy. Like I'm so serious. I would go
to
and
instill
like
this
lay
kind
out
of
in the sun,
negative
enjoy the
stuff.
farmers market. I'm here
so
just
you're
to
just
like.
not. So why did you come to a debate if you're unprepared to debate?
But
Oh, because no, I'm not
liberals have
unprepared.
done
I
a
thought we were gonna
lot
have more
to
of an exchange.
oh
And
my
this
god, I don't want to talk over them. Liberals have done a lot to like there's a lot of things that like she just did it. Like when you hear her make like crazy claims about force doctrine that are totally unnecessary, all the men in the chat are like, oh, she's getting dunked on, blah 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 blah. They're all just they're just believing everything Andrew says, and they're believing everything Brian says. I would honestly, I guess I would have a slight preference to men going with like an Andrew prescription as opposed to like a Fresh and Fit or a Andrew Tate style prescription. But I don't know. It's kind of like a funnel now where like you go into the red pill and then Andrew kind of takes you out of it to his way. But the end conclusion of that isn't better for women. It's a little bit better for men because you're not encouraging them to just like hate all women and just go make yourself huge and do this and make money and sleep with as many girls as you can. Like that's really bad for men. This isn't as bad, but it is still bad. Oh yeah, I've been following it. I've been following the progression for Pigeon Speaks. No, I don't think so. But I'll write that down really quick and check it out later. I wrote it down. I'll look it up.
feels more like again like an attack. So that's why I'm not having very much fun.
I mean, look, I don't
Oh,
think
what
that's
was the
a fair
other thing?
characterization of the exchange
Sure.
you guys had. There was a slightly
It's open to interpretation.
There was a
Was,
slightly
he
heated
wanted me
moment
to
exchange
do
from both of you at the beginning of the show. I think it's okay. We're going to continue on with
versus
the
Zizek.
conversation. Allow me to let, we have about 3 chats coming through,
I
and then
think
we'll get
I've
back to the
seen
debate.
most of that debate, but
Rachel
I'll watch
Wilson
it on
says,
stream
by the
again
way,
when
this is Andrew's
when this is over.
wife here.
Oh,
Nobody's
hello.
talking down to you, Princess. Uh-oh, she wants to do Colin. Do you want to talk to Andrew's wife? Maybe she can get some. I don't know, but okay. Andrew is just
she does not want to talk to Rachel Wilson.
your arguments easily, and you feel
Oh,
embarrassed.
I've definitely heard of MGTOW.
Thank you,
That's
Rachel,
like
for that.
the
Appreciate
black
it.
pill.
Donner,
Like,
page
forget
199,
women.
section 6.3 of the
Just
NIS4 shows
check out of
all
life.
the stats Andrew pointed out about female perpetrators. Anyone in chat can look it up. All right, thank you for that.
Even though she
Oops,
said she
shit.
looked it up in 2 seconds, even though
I
there's no
missed
possible
Well, that's
way.
not even like black pill. That's like one
Somebody
step
says
further. That's like
unmute.
pure nihilism.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but we have two chats coming here, and then we'll come back to the debate. So we have, one sec, we have Glocktavius. Thank you, Glocktavius.
Glocktavius donated $100. Kylie, you said you have a high IQ. What's your IQ?
I haven't taken an IQ test in a while, but when I was a child, they had me evaluated for having a high IQ because I was like talking really young and all these things. But the last time I took a test, I think it was like around a 150, but I don't know
Black
currently. It
pigeon
was a while
speaks.
ago.
150?
Yeah.
That's genius level.
Is he a black pillar?
And I know you're going to say I'm not, so it's like funny, but I know it's
If he's
you could
MGTOW,
probably
he
get your
could
own
be a
IQ.
black
Say
pillar
anything. I
too.
just said that that's considered genius level.
Thank you.
He was about to congratulate you.
Oh,
that?
sorry. I'm on the defense a little bit, but thank you. I appreciate it, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Poor me, I just have an average IQ.
Yeah, I think I've seen the
literally.
Peterson
Average IQ.
Zizek one,
And
but
you
it
know
was.
what? Look, here's a little,
But
a
I'll
lot
watch
of
it
the
again.
Chat's been a little mean.
Refresh my
YOLO
memory, for sure.
Swaggins says you're hot.
Thank
So
you.
if it's any,
I saw that in my YouTube
Thank you, YOLO
recommendations.
Swaggins, for that. That does actually make me feel nice.
Thank you,
So.
YOLO Swaggins. And then final chat here, then we'll get back to the debate.
Yeah, whenever I think
Six
black
Pack
pill, I think of that
donated
kid Wheat
$100.
Waffles that was
Chad.
going
I didn't
crazy.
go to school for 4 years to be taught
Online,
like
if you're
this.
not
The
super
girl
hot,
boss can't
no
handle
woman
the
that's
big
hot
meandering.
will ever look at you.
You are the most insufferable broad I've ever seen
Wheat
on this
Waffles
show,
in a
including
nutshell.
the hookers.
We have had a couple hookers.
Yeah,
They've
I've
had a
actually
couple
had
hookers.
that said to me quite a few times. So I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm glad you like Andrew and like you guys have that sort of connection. I think it's important to have people that you look up to in content and stuff.
And so getting back to the debate.
Interesting
Andrew,
take.
did you want to continue
That
on
was
with
an
the
interesting
force
take
doctrine
right there
conversation?
she just had.
But like, I need you to actually engage with my inquiry. The reason I'm giving you, maybe
Oh,
I
I thought we were going to switch topics. Oh, we're staying on this one?
So the
Well, I
thing,
think he wanted to just finish
Yeah,
it.
we
but
weren't
we'll-
done with
we'll
it.
switch from soon.
Okay.
yeah. So
Oh,
the reason I
back to
want you
force
to engage
doctrine?
with it is because it's a falsifier for your worldview.
Okay.
And
Sure.
That's
if you
where
refuse
he's
to engage,
wrong.
It looks like you're just refusing to allow the falsifier for your worldview. So can we get, if we can get back to it, I'd like to. My question starts with inherent rights. You claim that they're inherent, and I'm asking you, if a government's not giving them to you,
Yeah, there's no such
and
thing.
God's not
That's
giving
impossible.
them to you, where are they coming from?
That's a good question. So if
Over there.
we just
I
existed,
found
there
them.
was no government,
Nope.
and I was an atheist,
Are they
I
over
would,
here?
in theory, have the ability, the right to walk around freely,
They're somewhere.
to make myself food, to do all these things without the fear of violence. But if violence did happen, then we would
How?
have to create.
How would you, in theory, be
Because
able
I
to-
believe that
to
communities.
just walk around without any threat?
I don't think women should necessarily be shamed just for having an OnlyFans. I think that's a little cringe. But I do think society should try to promote things that lead women away from that. I don't think that's a great place for anyone to be. I think we should get men to stop consuming any type of corn. It's terrible for their health. It's absolutely awful for their brains and their productivity and everything. I think we should try to move away from that world. I don't think we need to shame women, though. I agree with you there.
Threat of violence.
Because there were plenty of communities that have done that. In
Does
the
a
past.
rabbit have the ability to walk around without any threat of violence inherently?
No, but I'm not a rabbit.
Yeah,
so
I know.
don't-
But the thing is like, why not? Why doesn't the rabbit have that?
Because there are predators.
The
So
rabbit.
what would our predator be? Are you saying men are the predators?
Well, or women, or
But if men are the predators,
Yeah.
that goes against everything we talked about in
or
the first half of
women,
the debate.
or
sir.
women. Did you hear that part? Or women. Like women can assault you. Doesn't require a man, doesn't require a penis for somebody to assault you. So the thing is like, if it is the case then that the rabbit has no inherent rights because there's predators or people who would be predatory, or even if we said that there would be some men who would be predatory even. How do you have this right to walk around unmolested and the rabbit does not?
So you are wanting me to say that we have to enforce it, right? Which we do.
I'm just asking
But I
for
don't
your
think we have
answer.
to enforce it through like physical force. I think we can enforce it through like words and like being able to like speak to each other and then like
The rabbit screams and the coyote doesn't care. So if it's the case that people don't care about whatever
It's a good
the wolves don't
analogy.
care about
I'll
what
give
the
him
rabbit
that.
says, right? They don't care about the rabbit screams. Does the rabbit have rights?
if the wolf
One thing I will say about Andrew, he made Pearl Davis look like a raving lunatic the other day. And I did appreciate that a little bit.
doesn't care if the rabbit screams, does the rabbit have rights?
Yeah.
Is an interesting question. I suppose.
The rabbit has the right to not get eaten by the wolf?
But like again, I mean, I think most people would
The right
agree
to
that there is a
carrots.
fundamental distinction between humans and animal societies. So I don't understand how
but
it's relevant to my point.
In this case, the equation would just be a rabbit is a biological walking being, right? And so is a wolf. The rabbit does not have the right not to get eaten
God,
by the
guys,
wolf.
you know you're
What
listening
gives
to
you
this
any
through like
inherent right to
a
not be in
microphone,
any way assaulted, molested,
and everyone has
undignified,
different
or
accents.
whatever? If it is the case that people
women,
want to do
I'm
this
sorry,
to you, what
they
is the
sound very
inherent right
similar.
there?
Right. I could ask you the same thing.
Yeah,
But why don't
Pearl's
you answer the
out of
question,
her
then ask
mind.
yours?
No. I'm saying like I could
okay,
ask. Sorry.
figuratively,
Like
okay.
figuratively, I could ask you the same thing in terms of like what would give you the right to walk around and to like be respected and have your wife Rachel like like talk
Force.
to you and
Force.
but I don't think it has to be. I think historically a lot of it has been forced, but I don't think it has to be. I think there exists an egalitarian society where we can all collectively have the ability and they used to just
I don't even disagree.
It's called transhumanism, and we are hundreds of thousands of years away from it. Now, there is an argument that force doctrine could apply equally to men and women way in the future. Way in the future when we transcend our human forms and become cyborgs. But we're not there. We're not even close to that. This is reality right now.
Agree with this.
Right, but
can this
Sorry.
happen?
But they used to
Yes.
just like sort of expel people out of the community, and they wouldn't be able to survive without the community. Like they would die, and so that's
they don't have a
not
right to life. It's
necessarily,
not
in my
inherent. You need the
opinion,
community.
force,
Yeah, it's forced. They can't go back to the community, so people are forcing them out, right?
But it's not like a physical force.
It's physical force. It's backed up by physical force. Why can't you go back into the community? What happens?
Well, there's also the emotional component of like ignoring the person, not giving them food. It's not.
That's not what people did. They didn't ignore them. They said if you come back here, there's going to be consequences, right?
Head on
Otherwise,
a
it's not
pike,
really
I think, is what it
banishment.
usually
It would
was
stop them
back
from
in the
just
day.
walking in and being like, you can ignore me, but I'm going to take your food and whatever I need to survive.
Sure. But the point being, for me, I believe that because those types of societies are possible to exist, right? Without the
Andrew and
physical
Rachel are
threat of
against
force and
most
having to put
people
in
voting.
cages and
I'm
kill
pretty
people
sure
to
Andrew is a
preserve the social order,
monarchist.
then therefore,
Some
I think
weird
that
kind of
we should not have to.
I actually
have
can't
a
even remember
patriarchy
what
or
type of monarchist he
matriarchy.
is.
Yeah,
I've
but I think we
definitely
should
heard
just
him
be
say
able
that
to
he's a
exist in the
monarchist,
right
though.
because
I
that the
understand
rights
what you're
come within
saying.
us.
I agree that you can have all sorts of different arrangements for how a society
But
is
I'm saying
arranged.
because of those things, then.
Yeah, but
like,
that doesn't give us the answer here for why it is that the rabbit doesn't have
Right.
the right to not get eaten
I mean,
by
I
the
don't
wolf,
think
but
I'm-
you have the right to not get assaulted by another human being. What gives you that right?
I mean, I don't think I'm going to at any point give you the answer that you're looking for
I'm just
because we
looking for
fundamentally
the
just
answer.
disagree.
What you said is because future societies can look different. That doesn't tell me anything.
That's really not like what I was saying. I was also drawing from the past, but I mean, personally, I think that. Sorry, the problem here is that we have seen we've seen the patriarchy as something that should be either seen as malevolent or benevolent, and I don't think that it should be classified as something that we need, generally speaking. I think there are systems of organization where we don't have to rely upon men.
Can I try this?
Because that seems to be what you're trying
Let
to
me
get
try
at.
a different way. Can you repeat my question to me so I know that you understand what my
Gee.
question is?
No.
I
I
don't
would
think
just.
so.
I mean,
Can
again,
you repeat my question to me so I know you understand what it is? Please.
I'm getting real close to
Why? Because you won't answer this question.
No, I am answering in a way that you don't find satisfactory,
I'll say,
and
what do you
because
want
of
to
that,
eat tonight?
Yeah,
and you go,
a
Marjorie
monarchy
Hats. It's like, it
based
doesn't tell
on
me nothing.
but you're asking me the question repetitively
Christian-
Because you won't answer it.
No,
Christian
I won't
ethics,
answer it in the way that
basically.
you
No,
want.
you just won't answer it, period.
I don't know how they would pick the first king if they don't want anyone to vote. I'm not really sure where they make the connection there, but
I don't need an answer from, like, I'm not demanding. I'm not someone who, you're looking at me like I have
honestly,
to answer you. Like,
he might
just
just
because I'm here
want.
doesn't
Oh
mean I
no,
have
but
to do
he
anything.
doesn't
What are you doing in
follow
a debate if you
people
won't answer questions about your worldview?
authority.
I mean, there's a lot
He's
of reasons to be
orthodox.
here, right? Like,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
promotion,
Maybe
for
whoever's
your brand,
the head of
Do
the
you think you're
Orthodox
promoting
Church
your
would just
brand well when you
decide.
answer questions about your worldview?
I mean,
the-
that's subjective,
the
and I
king
have
is.
been answering questions.
You haven't. What you've done is every single time I ask you this question, right, you appeal to something that doesn't answer it. You say, well, there could be future
According
society.
to you.
Okay, I'll
Sure.
tell you what.
But I've given you the answers
I'll tell
I
you
have.
what. Let's try
like,
this.
That's why you're trying to force me into a corner that I don't have the answers.
Let's try this instead, right? Because when people do this all the time. They say I am answering the question when they're not answering any question at all. Can we just try this? Can you just give me a real quick summary? Where do rights come from?
Okay, so I think that, and you're going to say, but you don't believe in God. But I'm going to give you, because this seems to be the only naturalist, or the only explanation you will accept from me is the naturalist explanation. I think that they are inherent. And let's say human beings are God, right? Like, some people believe that each person has an essence that belongs to God. So let's say that. So therefore, it's
But you don't
inherent. It
believe
comes from
that.
God. We are God. I believe that each person is made up of a collective that could be considered like a human spirit. So yes. So
But you don't believe in God.
But a human spirit to me is God. So I think that each person has the ability to self-govern, and those rights are given to us by ourselves, because
Wait
whether we're God or not.
Okay. The rights come from us. Okay.
Yes. So, and that's coming from the humanist perspective.
So rights come from you, the individual. That makes, okay, that's at least an answer. So rights come from individuals. So how do individuals then, if they grant themselves these rights, keep them?
By communication and compassion.
my
I'm an
God.
optimist. So ideally, we don't have to use force.
And somebody does not want to agree with you and says, I don't care what you say, what happens then?
She's not gonna have an answer for this.
So, okay, I will concede your point that to preserve the order,
To preserve rights.
Oh yeah, they want to
Sure.
go back to
Then-
1950 and stay there.
then
He's said that on many occasions.
there
that
are
exact
occasional needs for force.
that exact line.
Okay,
he
well,
wants
let me
to go
make this-
back
Because
to
I know that's what you're trying to-
1950.
Let me make this even
Get me
wider.
to
stay
Let me
there.
make this even wider. I don't believe that you can name any type of governmental system or any type of anything in which
It's just so
force is not
pointless
going to be
because
the backer
now we've
for
been
what the
talking about this for
establishment
almost an
is,
hour.
period.
At least a half
I
an
don't even
hour.
think
How
it's
long have they been
possible.
talking about this?
Like, how could it even be possible
Okay,
that you're not
so
always
let's
appealing
say
to force?
let's say I concede.
114.
Then what's your point? Like, relating back to
248.
men are
They've been
enforcers.
talking about
you're
this
always
for
going to be
an
appealing to
hour.
men for your
But
rights.
why do men have to be the enforcers? Like, let's say your force is like force doctrine.
Because
Yes.
women can't overpower men. Only men can.
But weapons exist. So, like, what if
And
women?
who's better with
Oh,
weapons?
this is a huge lie. Okay, the firearm is the great equalizer. It is not. It is not. It is not an equalizer, especially when you get to like military grade weapons like automatic ARs and things like that. That they are not a force equalizer. Boy, boy. This is I hate that so many people use this argument and it's just not true at all. But here
And
we
who-
are.
Who makes weapons?
Okay, but what if like women somehow took over all the weapons and going into this hypothetical, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Women take over all the weapons. We teach each other how to use it,
Sure.
and men can't do anything. In theory, could then a matriarchy exist?
So I could say that it would. It,
I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. So I could say it's logically possible, but just so you know, when I say logically possible, Superman's logically possible, Wolverine's logically possible, all the X-Men are logically possible. I could say that this is.
It would be authoritarianism. Fascism is a very specific governmental structure that it actually has more similarities to like a communism, where like enterprise and the government have a much different interaction than they would in like a capitalist society. The fascism term gets thrown around a little too much these days. It's more of like just a pure authoritarianism is what Andrew would be going for, which is still bad.
It's logically
Still
possible
bad.
that women could seize all the means of production, all weapons, and enslave men. Logically, there's no contradiction. The descriptor
Oh,
for
no, that's
reality,
okay.
though, is
A lot
that
of
I would say
people
descriptively in
use that
reality,
word
it's
in a much more
impossible
broad way
that
than what
women
it
could
actually
never
means
overpower
these days. So it's
men collectively, take over any means of production,
it
nor
just
begin
it
to
happens.
produce weapons ever and have any great effect if men didn't want them to. It's not even possible. I don't
Okay,
see how it's possible.
so your conclusion though is based off of this scenario that
Yes, if
you
women
are
stole
saying
all
is
the
impossible, but you're
weapons,
saying
no men were
it's logical.
somehow
So,
had
I
any
mean,
weapons at
I
all.
disagree. I think it is
There's a
possible
chance.
though. Like,
But try to
that's an
understand the difference
opinion.
between logical possibility, which just means
Right.
no contradiction.
Yes.
So almost anything's logically possible.
Yeah. Right. It just seems like
There's a world in which you're a man and a misogynistic man.
Sure.
That's logically possible.
right. Yeah.
So
no, but
so that doesn't tell us much, right?
but I'm saying like your force doctrine though, like you're saying. Okay, so let's say I agree with the fact that force is necessary to keep a
Necessary
society.
precondition. Yeah.
Right. So let's say I agree.
Yep.
But then your conclusion that you're drawing is that therefore so because of this, then men are the enforcers, right? Because they're physically bigger.
hasn't
Therefore, then men
stated
give us
a
our rights.
conclusion
well,
yet.
no.
Right.
I'll give it to you in this premise form. It would
Okay.
work like this.
Yes.
Women cannot collectively overpower men. Men can always collectively overpower women because the sexes need each other, literally need each other, cannot be disassociated. Otherwise, there's no humanity. There'll always be a banking of an enforcement arm which protects women and men and children, and that will always have to go to men because men are the physically dominant sex. So if that's the case, it will always be the case. You have to appeal to men for the very rights in which you think you have, right?
And that's fine. We'll give them to you. It's fine. We will. Some of us are chill, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that what follows, based off of what you're saying, makes sense. But I'm still going to always disagree with the fact that women, like your initial statement that women cannot overpower men with weapons. I think that would be.
Can you name a time it's ever happened in history?
No, that
collectively?
doesn't mean it can't. Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't.
Wolverine can't happen. Wolverine can happen.
Right,
Superman
but then
can
we can
happen.
go on with this forever,
Well,
right?
that
But-
has
not
already
really,
started
because
a
if
little
we're talking
bit.
about descriptive reality.
but
Do you
it could be
honestly
fixed.
believe that you're only disagreeing with this because you just don't want to agree, right? Because you said, I agree that what you're saying, it makes sense.
I just
but
fundamentally
still
don't think
disagree."
this is like a very
That's because it
applicable
refutes your
topic.
entire worldview, because you'd have to say that
She's
you
right
have
about
to
that.
I
See, she's right about that. It doesn't really matter who the enforcement arm is. We're still all going to kind of come to these decisions collectively. So like his whole point is like, well, men could take your rights away from you at any time. Okay, but what should those rights be? This is like, they need to get to the next part of the conversation. They have to get over this hump to continue the conversation.
Literally have
for
so
your
many
rights.
pages here of like
Yeah, but
things
this
that
is
I
the
would
most
rather be
important
talking
point.
about. Like I don't understand.
This
like
kicks the pillar of your worldview out. Do you believe that you need to appeal to
Doesn't.
men for you to be safe or not?
Unless she's
do I
fully
need to appeal to men to be safe
anti-patriarchy.
or not?
Yeah.
Currently in the patriarchal society, yes. Should we have to? Is it possible for us to not have to? Yes. But
Then
currently,
men,
do we?
men are,
Yes.
And do men protect you?
Not always.
No, but mostly.
Unfortunately.
But-
No,
but
not even mostly.
Aren't they the ones who are? Aren't they? Yes, mostly. I'm sorry. Are most women dying?
it just
Are
depends.
most women dying from violence? No. So they're mostly being
It
protected
depends
from
on
violence.
what you mean by like protect though from harm. Like there's just a
like
lot
you
of
live,
ways
like
that
let's
women are
see,
harmed
like
by
you
men
live,
on a
like
day-to-day
you live in a
basis.
nation in which you're granted massive amounts of rights. You're protected while you sleep. You can dial 911, have officers there almost immediately in most places.
But you're attributing all that to men?
They're the enforcement arm of all of those collectives, yes.
Right.
So like police officers, you would agree, vast majority male, right?
I wish she had a
And
little
that
thing in her
women
ear.
tend
So someone could tell
to
her,
underperform in almost every standard because
you
we
can
lower
concede this
standards for
point.
police
It's
officers
fine.
so that women can
It's not
be
a big
them,
deal.
even though they don't actually perform very well against their male compatriots, do they?
Sure.
So if that's the case, then you're still appealing to men, aren't you?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't really want.
Yeah, I know. You'll just concede just to concede.
I mean, fundamentally, I don't think this is very
It's
interesting.
kind of funny, right? It's
I mean, there's a
almost
reason this isn't taught in philosophy
it's like a man's
classes,
verbally
but-
assaulting you, you're just rolling over and taking it because you got
I'm not
nothing.
taking it, I'm
you just
here.
roll it over.
I would
and
actually
take-
prefer to
You
leave.
just went dead fish on me, right? Like a bear's attacking you, went dead fish because you just can't refute the arguments.
It's not about that. It's just about not being disrespected. If I feel like I'm being
I'm not
disrespected, I'm not
disrespecting
going to
you
talk.
by asking you questions about your worldview.
No. You're just being, how do I say, very
Don't say
demanding and
misogynistic.
overbearing because it's actually.
I know.
something-
I'm like,
I mean,
we're
I
in a
listed
debate,
a lot
I
of
need you to
topics
answer my questions.
that I would rather
know.
talk about, and we've been talking about your
Why do
topic
we-
for
why-
45
I don't-
minutes, and I've barely even had an opportunity to steer
Are
with.
Yeah, but that diplomacy is effective because it is backed up by a threat of force. It's that mutual threat of force that actually allows diplomacy to take place.
Do you have a
conversation
bunch of
goes.
topics that you
Yeah,
brought?
of
I brought
course.
one. Why can't we talk about mine too?
It's like why all of the big power countries, we don't really go to war with each other anymore. Because if we did, there might be nukes. So instead of nukes, we should probably try to talk things over. You know?
We are.
Oh, great. Then what's your complaint?
You're hiding a little behind the mic. Can you try to?
You don't know now what your
straighten it up?
complaint is? Did that argument not work very well? You brought 10 topics. I brought one. You don't want to talk about my one topic, but we should talk about your 10? Fantastic. Fine, we can
She
move
brought
on.
10
but
topics?
Unbelievable.
We will do a couple chats here, and then we'll get into our next.
If they were all women, though, they would probably be a little bit less effective. And if the whole army was women, it would be completely ineffective against like a force that included mostly males. It would be, yeah.
Topic
All
then.
right, bring in the chats. I'm going to go have a smoke.
Alrighty, sounds
Maybe
good.
we should just. Can you pause it, or should I stay here while he goes out? Can I take a break after him?
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
do
okay,
that. We
cool.
can do that.
That's fine.
Okay, so we have
I think they should leave Brian alone to answer the super chats.
Xerxes here, or actually,
Xerxes
maybe
donated
we should wait for Andrew on
$100.
these.
Hi Kylie, are you a communist or anti-capitalist? Can women be sexist towards men? Can minorities be racist towards white people? Is misogyny worse than misandry?
That is a great question. Yeah. Sorry, can I answer it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or, you know what? Why don't we do this? Just because maybe Andrew will want to weigh in.
Yeah,
on
he'll
your
probably
answer.
have things to say.
We'll wait.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's see if any of these. Here, I'll let this one come through because this one's kind of just general.
Red
I guess.
Fox donated $100.
Against Macron, yeah.
Thank you,
Appeals
Red
to
Fox.
humanism,
I think that's probably true.
naturalism, theism, and relativism. What a mess. Your worldview is incoherent and destructive. Your pretentious presentation is a turn
No,
off.
and
Bring on Mrs. Wilson. Not one step back.
she does not want to talk to Rachel.
Anything you want to respond to there?
She definitely doesn't want to
no,
talk to
I
Rachel.
just wasn't like prepared on this subject, and it's
Be
an
a
interesting
big-
topic.
big
So
bad
I
idea.
will learn more. I mean, I'm always open to learning more, so I will go do my research.
Got Jason Cassell. Thank you, Jason.
Jason Castle donated $100.
Oh, I've seen this
People
chatter
sleep
before. He's
peaceably
crazy.
in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf.
Any
This
government
quote
only
sums
has
up
power
reality,
because of
but
the
you
enforcement
refuse
arm.
to concede because you don't like men. Dumb.
Yeah, I really, I do believe that men are important figures in our society, and I admire a lot of the bravery of men. So if you want to call me stupid,
People's
whatever you want to
peaceful
call me, that's
and
totally
benevolent only
fine.
because
But I
rough
never
men
said that
stand ready. Okay.
I hate men. I do believe that men are important, and I like men. I'm close with my dad. I have a partner who is a man right now. So yeah.
All right. And if you guys want to get your own message in, you
Is
can
her
do so.
partner Oliver from last
streamlabs.com/whatever.
night?
We're doing $100 TTS. We have Jordan Flores here. Hey, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Jordan Flores donated
That's kind of what I meant
$100.
earlier when she was
Thank you.
calling
Can
Andrew a
someone tell her
misandrist.
that
It's
the
like, no,
restaurant
Andrew and
gives
Rachel
many
can
crossword
definitely,
puzzles
or
and an IQ test.
she was
Also,
calling him a
ironically enough,
misogynist.
when she
Sorry.
mentions quitting every 15
They can
minutes, it
definitely
proves
be
Andrew's
misogynist.
point.
Yeah, Jordan, I'm not
But
like
they weren't
mentioning
being
quitting.
it
I'm
yet.
genuinely trying to leave here because I do not enjoy this environment. It's very hostile. And I know
This
that
is
the
not
restaurant owner is not
hostile.
an IQ test.
She's,
It's kind
oh God. Doesn't she understand that like college girls that don't even do politics have sat across from this table with Andrew and fought him tooth and nail the entire time without wanting to leave ever? Like, this looks so bad.
Kind of a funny joke, though, but thank you.
Okay, we have some super chats here. Honest question for the feminist. How is feminism in any way about equality when every single policy and law it advocates for is literally a move away from equality? Even Charles Fourier, who coined the term feminism, was a staunch misandrist. Maybe a little typo there, but do you want to answer Manny's question here?
Yeah, so
I don't know if that's
I
a valid
mean,
question
again, that's
there.
an absolute. Not every policy is about a
Oh,
move
he's
away
being
from
so
equality.
mild.
Feminism has never been
If
about
they
female
were on
supremacy. It has been
video
about
camera
the
right now,
importance of
if
creating
this was
equality
like an
between the sexes
online
and creating
debate,
protections from
he would have been
for
going
women in various
absolutely
areas,
insane by now.
economic, political, whatever it is. So yeah,
He would
I
have
don't
been
know if
screaming
that
at
answers your
her.
question, but
It would have
Alright.
been.
We have
Oof.
Andrew back here. Manny, thank you for that.
If they were on
super chat. We have two
TikTok, she
from
would have
Lucas
muted
here,
him.
And two more. It looks like some on Streamlabs. Lucas, thank you, man. Honey, you don't want to go toe-to-toe on credentials
God,
and
Lucas
alphabet
again.
soup with me. I assure you, the alphabet soup is far more expansive than the law degree that Brian and Andrew might possibly be aware of. That, notwithstanding, as logician, rhetorician, and debater Andrew continued, is superior to me by order of magnitude. Rest assured, that piece of paper signifying your four full-fledged years of imbecilic indoctrination is meaningless. Oh, but hey, how many genders
Brian's
are
got to
there?
like
Would
go
love
back
to
and
hear your
take some
take
English
on
classes
that. Do you
just to be able to read Lucas's
want to
chats.
respond to him on that, or Lucas on that?
Bathroom break. If you have anything to say, because remember I was gonna.
Yeah, do you want to do a quick response to Lucas?
Yes.
And then feel free to take a break.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that for me, I believe that sex is biological, so it's what's assigned at birth. So it's like male, female, and then gender. I think is really like open to interpretation, but like definitely, man, woman, trans man, trans woman, non-binary are the ones that I really like.
I want to get back to that first
often,
chatter's question, the
those are-
communism
I just think it's
question. I
very
want to see what
individual,
she says to
but
that.
yeah, good question.
Okay, yeah, feel
I'll be
free to
back.
take your break. We'll read a couple chats here. All right, we've got, one sec, guys. We have one sec. Where is it? This one's for you, Andrew. Chat for you.
Did everyone just catch that little look?
Donated $100.
Jeez.
Andrew, if you had some cleavage, maybe you could garner some soft feelings too. Also, M's dipstick is touching the right side of her nose when she wants to be fed an answer.
USMC, thank you for your message here. We have.
Well, the thing is
There's
like
definitely nobody feeding her
it's not
answers.
like you can't look up 1,000 different debates that I've done easily, right? And know that you're coming into a debate with somebody who definitely is going to press your worldview. I haven't even been mean. Like, it's just like, how is it that these women are such girl bosses, but at the same time they're so fragile? Just
Yeah, that
break,
look was-
You know? It's like you barely even touch the surface; they just break, they just crumble. It's
That made me
ridiculous.
giggle.
You know what? One sec.
If you look at the Now, which was the main
I need to put it on
organization of the
intro
world
for
for
just a
women's rights,
sec,
it's not
guys.
just championing
No,
rights
it's
for
okay, I'll
women,
do it.
but for men as well. Yeah, most of them do. You know, the looks that are happening right now are way worse than the looks that they were just giving each other while the live was on. Oh, but we can
I
skip.
was officially chastised.
Okay.
For the idea.
Oh, you got
Only
chastised.
for the idea that I wasn't reading enough of these super chats because you guys aren't sending enough of them in. So do that immediately. We're on what we call on the Crucible an obscene profit break, and with obscene orthodox-looking beard comes obscene profit break. And don't tell me you haven't been entertained.
Yes, guys.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, the viewership has been gangbusters. It's 13,500
And Hannah, even if they weren't,
concurrent just on my channel.
even if they weren't,
on, I don't know what
in the
I think
last
you have maybe 4,000 on yours,
20
and
years,
then on Twitch on our end.
enough
we
men's
have,
rights
speaking of
organizations
Twitch,
that are like reasonable
we have how many on Twitch?
have kind of taken care of a lot of that too. Like,
watching on Twitch. So by
men
the way,
get
really
custody of
quick,
their kids way more
message here.
than
If
they
you guys
did
can, go to twitch.tv
20 years
/whatever,
ago.
drop us a follow
There's a
and
few
a
other
prime sub if
examples
you
of
have
things
one.
that
Brian, do you mind real
men's
quick, while we
and
have such a
women's rights
large concurrent
organizations have
viewership, if I
fought
do
for
just a couple
men.
of shout-outs, I'd really appreciate it. Like to shout out some whatever guests who've come on recently.
It's a
Jay
it's a
Dyer
straw
would be
man,
one.
you know.
Made by Jim Bob would be another. Of course, Jake Rattlesnake. I highly suggest all of you guys check their channels out. They are fantastic. I'm doing a little bit of shilling.
I don't like Jake at all. He gives me the heebie-jeebies. He kind of just says the same things as like Andrew and Jim Bob. It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't really understand the point of him.
And making Brian a bit uncomfortable, and I'm fine doing that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we've had them on recently. They
great
had some
guys.
good shows. All right, guys. If you have been enjoying the stream, like the video, please. Also, you can always support us. And I think / whatever we do.
Duxie's donated $100.
Here we go.
Hi Kylie, are you a communist or anti-capitalist? Can women be sexist towards men? Can minorities be racist towards white people? Is misogyny worse than misandry?
Okay, so there's like 4 there. Why don't we start with the first one? How
Sure.
do you how do you categorize yourself, I guess?
I'm reluctant to use any like label in terms of this, but I think that there are like definitely cons to capitalism, but there are a lot of pros, like you know, like ingenuity and like invention and creativity. So yeah, but I think that there's always room for improvement in a system. But no, I would never describe myself as like a communist or anything like that.
Okay, that's good. I don't know why she called herself a leftist to them earlier. But okay, she might just mean left-leaning. Like I'm a little left-leaning. I'm a liberal, generally speaking. Mostly on like economics and foreign policy. So like I believe in stakeholder capitalism, not unfettered capitalism, but I'm definitely not a Marxist leftist or anything like that. Yeah.
And then there was the can women be sexist towards men?
Yeah, good question. I think that women can definitely like have like not like men and have like a lot of like maybe prejudice towards men, but I think like just
she's gonna
the
do
term
the power
sexism
press
generally refers
prejudice
to
thing.
like a systemic issue. So like, you know, how for decades and decades like women couldn't you know, work in certain fields or they couldn't get a job, women couldn't open a bank
If you
account
just
until
go
1974.
outside,
That's like sexism because it's
this
a
is what
systemic issue. So that's the way that I think of it.
I've only been a
Obviously, I'm
channel
sure
for
he has
like a week and a
different
half,
opinions on that. But yeah.
what I've been
Men, but you're not here
I've
to
reacted to a
elevate
lot of whatever
women over
podcast
men,
clips
even though
because they're
No, I would
really
like for women to,
interesting
like,
and they have
they can't-
very
well, they can't be
engaging
sexist,
titles.
though. Only men. 'cause
And
it's
they make a
systemic.
lot of these claims about
There's one more,
hypergamy
right?
and this and that and
Yes, but
90% of
it seems like
women
Oh,
want
engaging on that,
10%
but
of
here,
men
why-
and the divide is
yeah,
gigantic.
how about we'll go through
Because
all
I feel
of
like we
them?
might go for a while on that one.
Yeah,
You
so
just go
we'll
outside and talk
we'll
to
get back
regular
it, but
women
can minorities, so I guess
and
like
it's
black,
pretty
Latino, whatever,
fine.
can
Like, it's
minorities
pretty
be racist
okay.
towards white people?
Like I've never had a woman call me cringe or
yeah,
try
like,
to
there's
make me
definitely
feel
a
bad or
level of like maybe strong
anything other
dislike
than,
or,
oh,
like,
I'm not
maybe, like,
interested,
prejudice towards
thank
white
you,
people, but
or
I would
already
say
have
the
a
same thing
boyfriend.
about like serious like
And that's it.
racism
It's
is
no
like
big deal.
systemic. Like
You
there were
just
laws to
try
uphold
again.
it, like you know,
And
Jim Crow
then a lot of
laws and
them
a bunch
say,
of
yeah,
other
let's
laws
chill.
to uphold.
And then it's
You
cool.
know, even
And
like
then you
the
chill.
institution of slavery,
And everything's
which was really,
fine.
you know, for like hundreds of years. And so because of that,
Just
the,
go
the
outside.
racism that is
It's the
embedded into like, our
terminally
laws,
online
whether on
shit
purpose or
that
not on purpose,
makes you think there's
in the
this
United
huge divide. When
States
they're
is
really, you go
systemic,
outside,
and so
you
that
talk to
makes
women, they're
racism
pretty chill.
primarily that way. And yeah, so I don't think minorities can be racist to white people. I think it's prejudice, though. I think the just terms are different. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the hatred or
I
the
lean
fear
liberal
exists
socially.
about
I'll
certain
call
groups, but
myself
the
like
term
center
is
left
the way I
on social
explained it.
issues.
Okay.
I don't think
and then the
things
final
that
one was
like
just is misogyny worse than misandry?
yeah, I'm still a
I would say
capitalist.
so, and the reason why is because misogyny is built into laws and policies as well,
But,
versus misandry is just like
reasonably
a lot of the time it's rooted
regulated
in genuine
capitalism.
fear. It doesn't make it, you know, okay, but I think like it's better to, you know, see people as they are. But I think misogyny is again more of like a deeply systemic issue, and a lot of violence, gender-based violence, is rooted in
The
misogyny.
simps are a
which
huge
cannot
problem.
necessarily
You gotta
be
stop
said for the
paying
other
for
way
these
around.
girls'
Obviously, there's always exceptions to
OnlyFans
everything.
and stuff,
then
and
so
go outside and talk
Andrew,
to
there
actual
was
women.
can women be sexist towards men? Can minorities be racist
Yeah,
towards
so I
white
reject.
people?
And just be chill.
So I
You just gotta be
categorically
chill.
reject
You
these
don't have to be a
definitions.
simp.
These are what
You
are
don't have to be a
called
nice guy.
institutional definitions. What they
just
are
gotta
is
be
they're
chill.
definitions in order to reinforce a worldview
Have a
rather
little
than
confidence.
actually give
Crack a
descriptions
joke.
for what is reality. So if we're talking about race, for
Have-
instance,
Here's the real key to it all. Have women as friends so that you know how to talk to women and you know what they like and you know how to make them laugh in a setting that isn't going to alienate them from you because they're just friends. So it's no big deal. You can fuck up around your friends. You can learn from your friends without losing your relationship. And then you can take that stuff and go and chill. Yeah, average men and women get married all the time, and they start relationships. And girls that work at McDonald's are not getting flown to Dubai. Like, they're not getting flown to LA for like a rapper. Like, this isn't happening.
Right, and racism. If you're talking about what are perceived racial groups, why couldn't minorities
That was
be
one of the good
racist
points
towards the
Raphael
majority?
made the other night.
Well, what academics do is they play this pretentious game where they're like, well, you have to have institutional power. Well, that's also...
Oh my God, are they still talking about the power prejudice thing?
I hate to interrupt you, Andrew. Can you just can
Yes.
you repeat what you just said to me privately there?
Yes, I will be needing to leave at 6 p.m. So for anyone who is leaving, or who is watching and not 6:30, because I have a lot of reasons, and one is
Okay,
that I
so
have to
she
drive
leaves
2 hours
in
tonight, in the dark. So I would like to leave at 6 p.m. and I'm making that known.
40
and
minutes-ish?
I hope that
45
our
minutes?
agreement can be fulfilled.
But can you specify? I mean, you agreed to do
6:30, I thought.
6:30. That was the agreed upon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, asking me to continue to explain myself is a little bit tiring, but there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I have some health issues. Just sitting here for this prolonged period. I was not told, by the way, that this was going to be 3 hours. I thought it was going to be an hour max. So I agreed.
We didn't specify that it was going to be an hour max. So why would
No,
you
no.
assume?
I actually was very poor communication on your end. But anyways, I'm telling you that I will
Not
be
poor
leaving at 6.
communication on your end. You're going to a show and didn't bother asking how long it was going to be?
No, I did.
Oh yeah, I argue with leftists all the time. Andrew got exposed by Oliver yesterday. I did check out that debate, and Oliver was floundering. He needs a lesson in debating too. I would rather give Rafael Gomez a lesson in debating, because I think he has it in him more to be good at this. He did not come prepared at all, which was really bad. But I think he's got it in him to actually make some progress in that regard. I think him and Andrew had a mini debate on like TikTok or online somewhere, and he was all frustrated and flustered about it, and it threw him way off. But well, they didn't get into feminism that much. Like Oliver's debate, I think the 2 debates with Jim Bob have actually been much more productive than the debates with Andrew. Because Andrew does get into like that spiral of epistemology and just kept doing the he kept his Oliver was better than this girl for sure. She keeps getting flustered and frustrated and trying to leave, and
When I got here, but I will be.
Wait. When you got here?
but I think Oliver even did a little better
Okay, so we can have
against
as
Jim
much of a
Bob.
debate as we want.
Okay.
Yeah, we
And
understand
if
you're
that's
leaving.
not
Because Jim
satisfactory,
Bob is
I
a lot
will
less
leave now.
frustrating
like, I'm
to
just letting you know,
debate
like, this is not
face
an
to face.
environment for me
Online,
that
he's
I
a-
am
Oh my God, you
enjoying.
He's like
whine
Andrew,
so
but-
much. You're such a whiner. You just whine and cry
But yeah,
about
I'm just
everything.
letting you know. I don't.
But what
Good
what was the other thing you said?
I
that
can't do a
if-
debate. He's going to ask me questions about my worldview I wasn't prepared for. I'm just here to teach and monologue, and I
I'm
don't
just
want
saying,
it. I don't want It's fucking ridiculous.
If the I signed something about coming
So
here
she
about making
agreed.
appearance,
She agreed
so.
to 6:30 right in front of me. And now she's retracting it. It's like, what is going on? I don't know.
And mind you, Andrew has just already done 2 debates. He did one on Friday and on
Flew
Thursday.
in also for my opponent.
And
Very
Yeah,
kind to me.
that
You're
is kind.
welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Those
Yeah, I'm gonna
debates-
have
I also
to
don't live here. I flew in.
do
I'm in
that one
Chicago,
on
so.
another
Right, those
stream. I might
debate-
not
like, I'm a little
react to the
confused. You
Oliver one,
flew
because I
in-
did
I flew
did
in.
watch it while I
have
was
family
editing
that lives an
videos
hour
last
away,
night,
so I
but
spent a little bit of time with them this morning, and then I'm going to see them again
most
before I
of
fly
it.
out tomorrow.
Well, okay, we'll discuss that after the show. But
okay, let's have a whole meta
and
conversation
if
about the
you looked
conversation.
at our channels and the length of our previous debates, the past 2 debates that we had were
Have gone
like 4
quite
or
long.
5 hours. And
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I-
again,
why would you have a different
I
assumption?
have health problems.
Yeah, but why
I
would
mean,
you
are
have
you
a
serious?
different
Like,
assumption?
are you fucking
I'm
serious?
fucking serious. Why would you
I
have a
have
different
health
assumption?
issues.
Why would? But why? How would we know that?
I'm telling you now.
Of course, but don't you think that if you saw the last 2 episodes, they went 5 hours, why would you presume that yours was going to go less and that we
They
would
were
have
long.
I
had
have
health issues?
Because I'm telling you, I have
But
when you
problems.
get to the show.
Oh my God. Wow.
You're,
Unreal.
this is an initial. This is a disclosure now. But look, so we're going to continue the conversation. But there was one other thing you said to me there in private.
She's like, you're fundamentally a dishonest person. Like, fundamentally dishonest. There's no reason for you to hold that presumption at all. On top of there being no reason for you to hold that presumption whatsoever, you get to the studio, then say you have health issues. It's like, yeah, it seems fundamentally dishonest.
Right. I mean, that's just kind of something that you don't want to disclose because
In her defense, Andrew left the Raphael debate early too. So, I mean, he was apparently up for 24 hours or something, but
it's a little embarrassing. But
we're not
okay.
asking you.
You cry?
oh my
Look,
God,
strong
dude,
woman
this
asking
isn't
that
you were a
helpful.
strong
Look,
I
woman.
hope you guys have a really good day. I'm leaving.
Hold on,
No.
Andrew.
You're
We're
gonna
not
cry.
asking. Hold on. We're not. Look,
I thought you were a strong
Kylie,
woman.
Kylie, do you want to just take like 3 minutes to gather?
I'm leaving. Like, I'm driving home.
I mean, you agreed to.
I agreed to appear, not stay for the entire.
Yeah, but that you can't do some technicality where, well, I showed up for 2 minutes and I'm just going to leave and
Okay, she's been here
get
for
the benefits of
a couple
Look,
hours.
Kylie, just take a 5-minute breather. You still there, Kylie?
All right, she does come back
Look, do you want to take a 5-minute breather?
for a
come
little
back,
while.
and we'll talk more. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Here, I'll do some chats.
Jesus,
read some
Andrew,
chat.
chill out, bro.
Let's see here. We have, oh boy, there's a lot. And I think we were about to get into a really good segment there when it came to is misogyny worse than misandry? Can you be sexist towards men? Can women be sexist
Oh,
towards men?
definitely, Hannah.
So let's do this.
It's definitely
we
true.
got- Wait, Kylie? Okay, that's fine. All right. All right. So we have Red Fox here.
Red Fox donated $100. Brian, great job as a mod. Andrew, I am sorry
Bullshit.
you have been
Yeah,
putting in so much work and this is the quality of your opponents.
Yes.
Glad your family is safe. Not one step back.
Look,
Bring on the blood sport.
and for those of you, I know there's probably a few of you in chat who are like, how could he do that? Well, here's the thing, right? It's like, I've been engaging in good faith, engaging in a typical debate. You know what I mean? And the whole time it's been all about tone and Andrew's bad.
No,
and
this
and
is
it's
a
like,
terrible look for
then we
Andrew.
get to
But
it.
him and
She
Rachel
flies me. She agreed to
categorically
6:30
do not
before the
care
cameras
about
rolled.
tone
I'm telling
policing.
you, she not
They
only
say
agreed
it
to
all the time.
but
It's-
basically, I mean, they discussed it. And
But
she was
it's
like, yeah, 6:30.
It turns
Then she
it's
changes her
bad
mind,
marketing,
right?
like on its face.
And then kind of was
Yeah, I know,
very
2 minutes.
dishonest about
No,
the
she's been
reasoning
here for like
behind
2
it.
hours.
And
at
there's
least.
a form of female manipulation which happens when they're like, I don't want to disclose any health issues because it could be embarrassing. It's like, well, then why did you agree to the show?
We didn't ask about the health
Yeah,
issues,
no, but of course not. It's all fundamentally dishonest. And so it's like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to look at her when they turn on the waterworks, when it's clearly manipulation, and be like, oh, okay then. Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that. I've had two really
It's
good
such
faith
bad
interlocutors
marketing.
which
It's
I'm
almost
back
like
and
they
forth
don't
with.
want
I don't hold
people
any
to
ill
want
will
to join
towards
them.
But it's like,
But
you came to do the debate. I flew out here to do
they
the debate.
predominantly
do the fucking debate.
get
Stop.
their
You know what I mean? Just do the debate.
audience-ship by taking them out of the red pill to the
And I think
Christ
we've
pill,
been
if you will.
probably I don't know if charitable is the right word, but almost.
You have not been charitable. Shut up.
Yeah, it's not like,
Barely, kind of,
annoying.
really at the
just
beginning, she's
charitable enough for
trying to
plausible
dictate terms. And look, to the
deniability
audience, I know you guys didn't
sometimes.
like that I was trying to kind of placate things a little bit, but
All right, we can skip this
that's why they, okay, Jake.
nonsense.
Here.
Here we go.
All right. Whoops. Didn't
Be
mean to
nice,
do that.
Andrew.
Okay, here's where we left off, right?
Right.
Xerxes was
Now, they should be respecting her time more. She should have known that Andrew was going to act like this and been more prepared for that. And this goes for anyone who's going to debate Andrew Wilson or Rachel Wilson or Jim Bob or Jake or any of these people from the Crucible world. You got to be ready for this. This is going to happen. This is not actual Justice Warrior. This is not someone who's going to debate you like a normal person. This is not Rob Noor. This is not a respectful individual. They're going to behave like this every time. And if you're going to step in the ring with them, you have to be ready for that. and she was not ready for that.
Can women be sexist towards men? Can minorities be racist
Yeah,
towards
it's a
white people?
horrible
Is
position to
misogyny
take.
worse
And
than,
it's terrible marketing.
misandry, excuse me. Andrew, it seemed like you wanted to
Yeah,
have a
But
so
conversation.
it's just
it is
academic
what it is,
doublespeak.
and he's
It's just,
very
it's away
popular,
from
and
the
he's
whole,
getting more
dualistic
popular.
standards.
So
So,
if you're gonna get in the ring with him, you
what they
got to
mean
know
by
you're
what they
gonna
mean
be
by
bullied.
racism
You're gonna be
is
this,
exactly
that,
what
the
they mean by
other.
racism across the board. It's just that in order to make whatever they consider the oppressive class not be oppressed, they call it something else by saying there's not enough institutional power. But if you were to ask them something like, well, what about over in South Africa, right? They would still say that nope, whites really have the institutional power there, no matter what, no matter what. So it's like it's never, and I've been in these debates multiple times. It's never a consistent definition. It's an academic doublespeak.
It is about
When it
embarrassing,
comes to misogyny, worse than misandry.
like a week
Yeah,
ago when
right.
Not So Erudite
The only
embarrassed
reason that
Jay
she says
Dyer
that is because she
repeatedly
believes in a
over
bunch
and
of
over
stats which are
again.
completely
That
false.
was
They're totally
based.
false. We've been over them multiple times.
He looked like a
Women
lunatic.
do just as much damage with their
They should have more
misandry as whatever she considers.
But that's why they don't have
misogyny to
Erudite
be.
on a
And
lot.
the truth is, it's all just
Because if they had
demonization.
Erudite on a lot, they
Yeah, I
would
don't know
look
why she's
really
crying. I
bad.
don't know. I have no idea.
Because she actually can debate.
But yeah.
And she knows more than enough philosophy to
He
walk
seems very
circles around
manipulative,
them.
by the way. I'm just pointing that out. But
Yeah, you're entitled to your beliefs.
I mean, she had
Would
Jay
you like to
Dyer acting like a
engage with,
like a lunatic.
the
He was
misogyny
acting like a
being worse than,
lunatic the other night.
misandry
Sure.
topic?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just read out the statistics that I have here about violence against women, and that's basically what my belief that misogyny is worse. Misogyny kills and misandry annoys is sort of a phrase that people say. I think both definitely aren't healthy, but 1 in 3 women experience violence in the home or just generally in their lifetime. World Health Organization, 50% of women are murdered in 2017 were killed by an intimate partner, United Nations. A lot of child brides, with victims being women married to older men, as well as 71% of human trafficking victims being women, often used for sexual exploitation purposes. And that a lot of that is rooted in the belief that women
It's
are
the
property
very
and
specific
objects
brand
that
of
men can do what they
conservatism,
want
because
with.
there's still a lot of regular
And yeah, so that is
conservatives.
why
Like
I believe that misogyny is
they've
worse.
had
I think,
Charlie
again,
Kirk on a
though, I
lot,
will
and he's
concede, I think
always
both can be
super
harmful.
respectful to the
can I just
girls.
point out real quick that sexual liberation is a key cornerstone of
He only
feminism,
really
including
bullies
OnlyFans,
like
things like this, and that's been linked
the male
heavily to
college
sexual
students that come up to debate him at
trafficking,
those like
and
stupid
still
events that he does.
The left does everything they can to promote.
I don't
that
think he
women
likes
should be
like
able to engage in prostitution,
and
even though it leads to
who's
those
that
very
other
same
guy
outcomes,
that
which is
Brian has
insane.
on a lot
On top
that
of that,
agrees
she
with
says
him but
misogyny
never
kills,
bullies the
misandry
woman ever?
annoys. That's
Mason,
not true. We look
the
at
virgin
post-divorce stats for
super ripped
suicidality, for
dude
instance.
that
Same
comes
thing.
on.
Even when it comes
He's
to
like
men's health,
waiting for
they
marriage.
do
He's
a lot
like
of themselves at
28
higher
or
rates,
30 though.
right? Now, I would still argue that
He's
that's
always
mostly
super
because they're
respectful.
better at
I don't
it.
think they
But also
all.
because, and what I
He's
mean by
on
that
some
is
of the
that, like,
regular dating
women
ones. It
will
wasn't a
basically not
formal
use- they
debate.
just
He
won't
doesn't
use
do
guns,
formal
right? And
debates.
men use guns.
He was just a regular guest on like
But
a
yeah,
dating
I would say
podcast.
also,
He's on the
when you're
Brian
talking about
side,
misogyny versus misandry, what's really interesting
he
about
doesn't.
this is they'll often only point to the stat
The
of
Jay
death
Dyer
as
one
though
is
that is the only stat which is worth
absurd.
looking at. You look at what's
But yeah,
going
her
on
and
in
Jim Bob was
society. We
good.
also have to look at children.
The only
The
thing she
effects and
couldn't get
outcomes
past was
of
the forced
children.
doctrine thing.
The
Still,
demonization of
I don't
men
know.
through
She can concede
misandry
that point. I
often
don't
will
understand.
lead to men or
But she did a
boys,
really good
young
job
girls,
otherwise.
things like that, losing respect for men. It also
I think she
leads
still
to
got
men
the
losing
W.
custody of their children, which leads to bad outcomes for children. Like, even if it were the case that I accepted all of her stats, by the way, that also proves that feminism is not doing a good job protecting women. It literally failed its promise of protecting women. But on top of that, can we just point out that she doesn't bring up the outcomes for children ever? They never bring up the outcomes for children, which are completely and totally awful when we have these
so
split
happy my
family
camera's
homes and the
working
glorification
tonight,
of
too.
single motherhood, which feminism has done. They only point to the fact that, well, misogyny can lead to the unalivement. Also, can I just point out, what about the fact that there's about,
it's bad. We still have a lot of work to
billion
do.
women plus a year who murder men's children in the womb? I just want to point that out.
We gotta-
She says, well, this is
we gotta change the way that we
basically
raise and
harmful,
educate
harmless
children.
annoyance. At the same
I
time,
think
remember,
almost
how many million
entirely.
abortions
Like
a year?
like a total restart.
May I just
That
ask,
whole process has to be completely
I was listening.
rethought.
Were you listening?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Danny Lombo, hello. Hey, Danny. Welcome to the chat.
I was listening.
How you doing
Okay.
tonight?
Do you want to
Sure.
refute or counter? Or
I think
respond?
that like being pro-choice, it like the way that it's defined about taking life is always going to be open to interpretation. I think people will think different things
What do
about
I
when
think
life
about
begins.
women's
And so
wrestling?
ultimately the crux of that, it seems like you believe in God, do you?
Joe
So I
Jola.
think that because of
No,
that,
let me write
we
it
will
down.
never see eye to eye, because I don't consider it to be
Unless
murder
you're
before a certain point. Like obviously, like if the fetus is
spelling
viable,
Josiah?
if like there
Oh, no,
are certain
do you
points
mean
where
you mean
I
Jola?
only ever use secular arguments. So even if it
I'm
is
not
the case
familiar
you
with
Really?
that
believe in
person,
God,
but
yeah,
I will.
I'll only ever use
I'll look them up
So what
later.
would
I
your
also have to
argument
look
be?
up
Like
Black
that the case
Pigeon
for sentience
Speaks.
makes no sense, and that
We'll check
scientifically,
them out.
the established scientific consensus, the legitimate scientific consensus, non-sociological consensus, is that this is a human life
Yeah,
at
woman
conception immediately.
MMA fighters
That
would
is the scientific
definitely
consensus. You can look at any
hold
source
their
you
own
want.
against
That's
the
the
average
scientific
guy.
consensus. So if that's the case, right, then we should treat it
Oh, I'll
as
check
though
them
it's a
out.
human life.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's going to vary from person to person. I think that there's a lot of people in the scientific community, and again, the scientific consensus does vary.
I try
on
not
when
to
life
run with the
begins,
progressive
not.
label
because the
because
religious
I
idea
No,
is.
the
I feel like
consensus does not vary. There's
Okay.
no source you could ever
everyone
look
should
to, and
call
I'm
themselves
willing to be corrected right
progressive.
now live.
Like
There's
you're
no
either
source I've ever
progressive
been able
or
to find
regressive.
Right.
which refutes
I
that
do
the
like Rob
scientific
Noor. I don't
consensus
agree
is
with
that
Rob
human
Noor,
life begins at
but I like
conception.
Rob
thank you.
Noor. He's
There would
very
be no
good
other way
faith,
to determine human life.
and
Other than
he's
that,
always
it began at
respectful
conception. You
for the
wouldn't even
most
be able to
part.
determine it another way.
I'll
But you
definitely
can go
check
ahead.
that
What does
debate out.
scientific consensus say? When does human life begin?
Sure.
I'll wait.
But if an MMA chick kicked me in the pit of my stomach,
So it's saying
I mean, it would
that
probably
there
hurt a
are
little.
three different
I mean,
perspectives.
I go to the gym
scientific,
though, and
philosophical, and religious.
I do HVAC and
Scientific,
stuff, so
most biologists
I'm
agree
pretty
that a new
put
unique
together.
human organization comes into existence at
it would probably hurt.
fertilization.
So human life
yeah.
at
My,
conception.
However,
At conception.
my
right?
little
but they're saying that
cousin
a new human organism, but there's people that have different agreements. That
punched
doesn't
me in
necessarily
the,
necessitate that doesn't mean
you know,
life.
the
What is
nethers
life?
once, and
It's alive.
she's
I mean,
only
that's
5,
it's,
and
that's
I'm
what I'm
gonna
saying.
be
is
honest,
it's
that
different
hurt.
for everyone. They're saying that the human organism forms at conception, but
Or
that
is
doesn't
she
mean
even
it's life.
5?
Well,
No,
what
she's
is
like
an
3 or
organism?
4.
Is it alive?
She's like 4.
I mean,
think. I
like
don't know. I
they're
can't
talking
remember.
about human life.
Yeah. Okay, but
Begins.
what? Yeah. What is life? It would an organism would be alive, right?
I mean, but again, there's a difference between human life and an organism. Don't you agree?
Isn't
Human
well? If an
beings.
organism is alive and it's a human organism, then it's human life, right? How could it not be?
I mean, yeah, you can believe what you want. I think just different people are always going to have different opinions on it. And
I'd
I
rather
don't-
mow
I
the
was just
lawn.
pointing out the scientific consensus.
I feel
Yeah.
that.
And I
I'd
was
rather
correct,
mow
right?
the lawn.
Scientific consensus by most biologists,
Depending
which
on
would
how
be
many dishes
consensus,
there are.
Yes.
say that a human life begins at conception, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So then what we're left with from the secular perspective is sentience, and that really makes no sense. That's it. So I would always use the secular argument.
Okay,
The
that's-
secularists can't determine when sentience begins. Since they can't determine when sentience begins, there's no reason for us to assume it doesn't begin at conception of life.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's different arguments for like. So I understand your argument's more biological. That makes sense. I understand your argument. I mean, there's different reasons people argue for being pro-choice and pro-life. So pro-life, pro-choice. But there's different ways of looking at it, and I don't think we'll ever
Ugh,
agree.
and
so
they're
I don't
all
know.
bad. That entire
But yeah,
debate
but good. I
is just
enjoy
a
hearing
disaster.
about your arguments and what you have to say. So I've never been, I never heard that specific point. So.
Kylie, you mentioned that there were some topics you would have, other topics you would have liked to speak on. Is there, from your prompts, would you like to bring any of those up, or?
Yeah. So do you really believe that out of the 4 components of the 4 principles of general feminism, which is working to increase gender equality, that's number 1, and expanding human choice, number 2, how do you suppose that those 2 things could be problematic?
Yeah,
Because-
let's start with expanding human choice, actually.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite ones. So you're not really for expanding human choice, right?
That is true,
Like,
Hannah.
just only kind of. Like you don't want me to
I'm
have
gonna
a choice
keep one
to be
eye
able to
open
drink and
around you,
drive, right?
okay?
Sure.
You know the
Yeah,
weak
you don't want me
spot.
to have a choice to stop at a stop sign.
Like, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like short of some like externalized emergency. So what choices do you want me to be able to have? Let's start with those.
Sure. Anything related to agency, like
Well, I
within
mean,
Like
reason,
not
without
stopping
harming
at a stop
others.
sign?
yeah, but I mean, me drinking and driving doesn't harm others,
Opportunity.
right? Does me drinking and driving actually harm others?
It can.
But everything I do can harm others.
Right.
So that's a strange argument, because when you're talking about freedom of choice and you say, well, we can limit this choice because it can do harm, that would be every
so
choice.
let me
Was it a
clarify
riding
then.
lawnmower? Because
Expanding
those are
human
fucking
choice
fun.
such that it promotes autonomy and
That used to be
agency
my
without
job. My
infringing
little
upon the
brothers
rights of others
hated it because I
or
got
the
to
safety of
do the
others.
riding
Now
lawnmower.
you see why I was so
Because
specific about
I'm the
rights.
oldest.
Yes.
Because
And
it's
that makes me the
definitionally
best.
part of what you believe, right?
Being specific is important.
So yeah, it's being
I
specific
was
is
just
super
the one that was
important.
big
I was very
enough to,
specific about rights. That's why I wanted to know where they came from.
Right.
Because I looked at your definition, which I wrote down earlier, which was the 4 parts. And I'll
Right,
read
right.
it to you, the
Sure.
4 parts if you don't
Yeah,
believe
she's
that I
wrong on
wrote
that one. The
down.
abortion
No, I
debate
believe
is
you. I
just a
believe
black
you.
pit
You've
of
definitely been paying
despair.
attention.
But
so.
you kept on
I don't know
saying,
if-
like, I don't think that this is pertinent when we're talking about
I don't know
forced
if I would
doctrine
ever
and
get
rights,
involved with
but
that
the
one.
entirety of
Literally
your
anything
second
else.
pillar of feminism revolves around choice and rights. So everybody should have a choice unless it expands to infringe on someone else's rights, right?
Like a living person, yeah.
Yeah, like a living person. Okay, we're going to leave abortion
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that
just
aside.
keeping
We're just
that
talking
aside.
about, we'll just say, like, you're alive. At least we'll agree you're alive when you come out of the womb.
Sure.
You're
right?
alive.
We can agree to that. So, but here's the problem, right? It's like, let's take something easy, like guns, for instance, right? Should I be able to own an AR-15?
Depends on who you ask and which state.
I'm asking you.
Do I think you need an AR-15?
Nah,
with
that's
a,
not what I asked. Should
Okay.
I be
Oh,
able to own
why
one?
is
should
she
you be able
doing
to
the
own an AR-15
obfuscation?
that has, because there's specific types, right? There's like ways you can prevent the AR-15 from firing rounds.
Nah, I mean a
after
fully
round after
automatic
round.
machine gun.
No.
Okay. Why are you taking away my choice?
Because like that would be an example of the specification that I made about how it infringes upon the safety of others.
Okay, what about a semi-automatic?
That's a good question. I don't really know why anything that even that large and semi-automatic would be useful, but I don't know a lot about AR-15s.
No, I understand. I'm not trying to hold any potential ignorance you have about the operation of guns against your
Sure.
argument. After
Sure,
all,
then-
I can say tractors do a lot of damage and not know anything about tractors, but still know they do damage, right? So I think that that's a legitimate argument for you to say.
I mean, I know, yes, but yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Tractors
Well,
are fun.
Well, what is it chambered in then?
I mean, my dad is like, he has like a gun safe, and I grew up with him like shooting and stuff.
do you
so
know
I a little bit.
what caliber an AR-15 shoots?
No, I don't.
Okay. So
I mean, again, I'm not familiar with AR-15s really, but
yeah, yeah. So we would say, like, functionally, you don't know too much about the product we're talking
All right,
about.
I don't know
I'm
if
fine
I'd
with
have
that.
my
I'm just
9-year-old
pointing that out
running around
to
with
be
a push mower
hyper-charitable.
regardless.
But how is that, considering the fact that I will never,
But I get it.
and
I get
almost
it.
nobody who ever owns an AR-15 will use one in a violent
Doing the
act,
dishes is dumb.
why is it worth limiting our choice?
is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Just
Do you
get a
know,
dishwasher.
For instance,
And before
almost
joke
all
that
gun
women are
crimes committed
dishwashers.
with
Okay,
handguns.
okay, I'm not. That's
and
not what
almost all of it is
I'm implying
committed
here.
by one segment of the population with handguns. When it comes to long
What
guns,
segment?
that would be the black population mostly
With handguns?
with handguns.
And
yeah.
then with shotguns, is that what you're saying?
No. With rifles
Yeah.
or shotguns, you're more likely to be beaten to death with hands and feet than a rifle or a shotgun, including an AR-15. That's if we took
Yeah,
all
most
of
gun
the
violence is handguns.
mass things. I can't say what they are, but the mass things that happen. If we took even all of those into account, you're still more likely to get beaten to death with hands and feet
Interesting.
than you are to. So, but how does that expand my choice then, though? That this is an operational thing that I want, and somebody definitely wants to sell it to me, and I want to buy it. Why are you limiting my choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I feel like it's very philosophical at that point. I do think like the stigma around owning guns, like I'm definitely for stronger. I just don't understand why anyone would need to own like a fully, like just the fact that if anyone got their hands on it, it just is scary. I don't know
Fully
why
what?
anyone would
You
need to be
can't
able to
own a
shoot that many
fully
rounds that
automatic
quickly.
weapon.
But
I
you
don't
believe
think
in rights, right?
I don't think.
Yes, the right to
anywhere.
own guns, I do believe is important.
Yeah, so that would be a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right,
That's our
sure.
Second Amendment, right?
Yeah, no, I mean,
And
sure.
that is a right.
Sure.
And wouldn't it be
I'm
infringing?
not trying to take it away. Like, yeah.
Well, you're trying to limit my choice with that right, and you haven't explained how exactly it infringes on anybody that I own an AR-15.
I mean,
There's
there
so
have
many
been-
better ways to frame
Yeah, I mean, I think the most
feminism
notable
than the
example, wasn't
4 points
I mean,
that she
I'll have to
chose.
specifically check, but the one in
Well, I can grant any like mass,
She's got to sit down with
homicide
Erudite
event that may have happened with an AR-15.
for sure.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with me?
She can sit down with
Um,
Erudite, and I'll talk to that
Right. I think the point
Raphael
being, I think,
guy.
is to determine if
I'm gonna
something
find him on
infringes upon
X
the
or
rights of
something
others
and
or the
try to
safety of
get him on.
others should be is something that is up for like debate. And so I'm not here to tell you like what does or doesn't, what is or isn't. Like I'm not like a governing agency. You should probably ask somebody who knows more about.
But it's
weapons.
the second pillar. The second pillar of your ideology.
Right.
is
I'm talking about human agency in terms of like not like the right. Like I'm specifically talking about the ability for someone to get the job they want. Like you immediately brought it back to guns. I'm talking about the ability to have the equal opportunities to like have someone take care of your children while you go to work and stuff, so that you can advance your career. Like
I think that's
you
fair.
know.
I think that's a fair point to make. So
Right.
if like a woman wants to get a job at a firm where a man controls the firm, doesn't want to hire her because she's a woman, you would say that that's infringing on her choice.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I think that that's completely fair. If it is the case, though, that
I feel like I don't know enough about guns to be able to like accurately come up with something. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, we could use anything that you could ever know about with gun wise. We just use that
Okay.
instead of an AR. But
Yeah.
the point is that if I wanted to have a firearm of my choice,
Yeah.
right, and it wouldn't actually hurt anybody, the expansive of choice seems like you're saying that business owner doesn't have choice because she has the right. Right? However, if it harms him and his business, it's the same argument you're making for the AR-15. You're saying because other people may do bad thing with this, right? May do, like horrible things. Some people may. The vast majority of people do not, right? We need to govern their choice in order to have safety for society or safety for individuals.
Right.
How is it though that if you tell people who they have to hire, you're not also limiting choice? How's that work?
It's not saying who you have to hire. It's saying who you cannot discriminate against. Like, the
That would be
1964
who you have
Civil
to
Rights
hire, though.
Act.
Right?
I think that racism is designed to combat, or that legislation is designed to combat racism and sexism.
Yeah.
Versus like, so the protection is more for the person. Like there's more protecting being done for the person who is being hired than there is harm being done to the business by being told they can't be racist. So that's how it outweighs it in my
Can you
mind.
demonstrate it?
Sure. So if I'm a woman and I'm equally qualified as a man and I go in to get a job and they're telling me that I can't be hired because I'm a woman, then that causes immense psychological and financial harm, right? For the company to have to hire me instead of the man, even though I'm equally qualified, that does not actually harm them in any way because I have the same qualifications and abilities as the man does.
Okay, so,
right? So
I
in my
want to go
mind,
buy a fully
does that
automatic.
even harm the company? I don't know.
Well, I think it does
How?
because it limits the choices and demoralizes the agencies at the top who may not want to hire you for whatever arbitrary reason.
But like,
they have.
let's say specifically, it's like they don't think women are good and like at the job.
Sure, let's just say that that's true.
You think that should be protected?
Well, I mean, from their view, it's going to hurt them, right? Like, there's no doubt that that's going to hurt them. You may not agree with the reasoning why it hurts them, but you can't
so you're
disagree that
operating
it's
in
going to hurt them.
Subjectivity versus like you're saying for the subjective
Well,
experience.
it's all subjective there.
No,
right?
but the subjective, no, I mean, not necessarily. Like the objective, there is an objective truth that discrimination is harmful.
Wait a second.
You don't agree?
Wait a second. Hang on a second. Then that would also be an objective truth then, that if people are forced to do things they don't want to do, like hire people they don't want to hire, then I would make the same argument that
you
that
think
would
that's as
objectively
bad as
harm
like
them.
racism?
Did I say as bad or objectively harmful?
Okay, so let's.
So when I say like I want to go buy an AR-15 and you say no you can't, right? That's doing the exact same thing. I don't understand. Like, what's the distinction here? It sounds like you're telling me what I have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people see it that way. I do have an interest in public safety, though, so I think that sometimes, certain actions, if they're racist, sexist, harmful, cause a lot of psychological or financial or other physical harm. I don't think that those should be protected over the beliefs of the inferiority of a person
Are you aware of
based
how
off of a
many-
characteristic they can't control.
Yeah. Are you aware of how many DEI laws there are?
I mean, I know there's a rollback now that Trump is in office, but sure, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, I mean, When it comes to hiring practices or non-discriminatory practices, right, there's hundreds and hundreds of laws at both the local, state, municipal, and at the federal level, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds which govern this behavior. You're telling me that none of those, which all of them are designed to expand choice, are infringements upon the hiring practices people want to hire who they want. Like if I wanted to have a male-only firm because I just wanted one, why is that actually a problem?
Right. I mean, I guess to your point, there are like women-only gyms, and
Yeah,
He
if I want a
almost rage
male-only
quit at the
firm,
beginning,
and literally
like
I'm
1
public
minute
about it.
in.
I'm like, I just don't want to hire women because I don't really like them that much.
I'll give it
If I
to her.
just said
She's
that,
staying,
like,
even though she's
outright, I
clearly
just
not
don't
okay
really
with
like them that
anything that's
much, and
going
I
on
just
right
don't want
now.
to work with them, and it's my company. I fucking own it. I built it. I invented everything.
But you got to be
What
prepared
is
for
actually
Andrew
the problem
if you're
with
going to
that?
debate
Why
him.
can't I just
I don't
do
care who
that?
you are. You're
Why
going
do
to
you
debate
wanna,
Andrew
why do you
Wilson.
wanna, like,
You got to be
infringe on
ready.
my choices?
it's like the 1964 like Civil Rights Act
'Cause
is
it might
probably
not be
going to
fun.
be a problem for you. I'm
well,
not
if I mean, do you know what freedom of association is?
freedom to associate with who you want.
Yeah. Do you think that that's an inherent right?
I think for corporations aren't people. So I don't.
Corporations are people.
Oh,
What
she
else would
leaves
they be?
real soon.
They shouldn't be people. I think that's where we disagree.
And then he
because
just
in
talks to
some
Andrew.
cases,
We're
the
not going to
Supreme
watch
Court
that. We're
has
going to
upheld
watch
that the
that
corporations
other debate
have the
that
same
was
rights as people. So
requested
if
of
you
me.
own a company and you're religious, then you don't have to pay for like reproductive services or birth control.
And
right?
what else would you couldn't classify them as anything but people? People are the things
Yeah,
which
it's
run
not easy.
corporations. Corporations are people.
I disagree. I
definitely
think
not
that
easy.
corporations are entities. They are run by people, but I think that they should be held to a different standard
Is there
than
any
people.
conscious entity that you can think of that talks and can speak like you and me and make decisions like you and me that's not people?
Oh, yeah, they're doing the DEI thing.
Yeah, sure. No.
No. So that, I mean, if that's the
Right.
case, they're making the same types of decisions that you and I are making.
She's doing the DEI thing.
Why wouldn't
So
they
you
be
think-
assumed to be people?
Because they have different sort of like standards of operation. They have laws they have to follow that are different from people. Like in terms of the government's eyes, I believe it should be considered not a person. I think it's fundamentally the way that it operates is different. I mean, it's not one, it's like a conglomerate of things and people who work in a company. So like,
So I don't have a corporation, let's say then, and I have a private business practice
right.
where I'm a landscaper. And there's a woman who comes in, she's definitely qualified for the job, and there's a man who comes in who's slightly less qualified for the job, but I just kind of want to hire him anyway because I just don't really like women. Why is that not something I should have the freedom to choose for myself? Why?
I mean, I just think we're operating at a different moral capacity. I mean, a lot of my things that I say are rooted in morals, and you're making yours vote like in sort of like laws.
I'm asking you for the moral argument.
I'm telling you that I believe it's wrong to make someone feel ashamed and not hire somebody and give them different outcome based off of their race or sex or
But you
sexuality.
don't believe it's wrong to tell people that they must do a thing they don't want to do.
Not at all. No, I don't. Because
So then it's not about choice, then, is it?
I suppose if you want to make the argument you're making, then no.
Then it's not really about choice. Okay, so the second pillar of feminism is
Right.
not
You
true.
just debunked it like so fast, just like that.
It's pretty
so
false.
easy
Yeah, it's
for
pretty
you.
false. You just said it's not really about choice. It's
Sure.
really about an agenda, right? What was the third pillar of feminism?
Well, I think we're getting close to the end. Is this what we want to talk about for the last, few minutes?
Well, we have another 30 minutes.
Sure.
It's 5:59 right now. We have.
All right. Well, I might just have to take
6.
another break because I'm not feeling so hot. Is that all right? But I'll tell you what I would like to talk about next, though.
Well, one thing here, I
She
think it would be
stays
fair.
I
for
just told you I
another
have medical issues, though. Like, I
No,
genuinely need to take a break.
Hold on. I'm
10
fine
minutes.
with you taking the breaks.
Okay.
But given the frequency and the duration of said breaks, I think it's reasonable to ask for an additional 10, 15 minutes to make up for the breaks that have occurred thus far.
Sure. I will give you 10 minutes more.
He's
So
got to
we can go till
stop.
6:40.
He does this
But
on
other
the
than
dating
that,
talk
I
too.
totally
But
cannot
on the
stay
dating
longer,
talk, it's like
like,
7
I have
hours in, and women are like, "Can I please leave?" And he's like,
I
Yeah,
have
no,
medical
look, do you
problems.
want to go ahead and take the break and we'll let some
Yeah.
chats come through? Okay.
"Oh damn, yeah." Did you see that right at the end? She's like about to break down.
All right. Here's what we're gonna do, guys. Since we are getting close to the end of the show, make sure you get your messages in now. There's quite a few. Andrew, if you can just stay for just a sec.
I'm staying.
There's quite a few. We'll try to get them all in.
Yeah, there's no
we'll-
law
we'll
that says
do
you
a
have
bit
to hire
more.
anyone.
So streamlabs.com/whatever. $99 TTS. Also, like the video if you're enjoying the stream. I need to do a quick sidebar with Andrew here
There
real
are
quick. I'm going to put it on
laws
the intro
and-
screen. Give me 10, 15 seconds. We'll be right back.
Okay, sidebar with Andrew.
Couple now women's here. Ripter, the problem with feminism is that men overwhelmingly allow women to redefine what masculinity should be, while women often concede no such ground to men who have a preference for how women should behave. How is this equality since she's gone? Andrew, do you want to quickly, like, 10
Yeah, very
seconds?
quickly. This is why I always tie them to virtues, and
Yeah,
thus
for the
far,
most
nobody
part.
has
There are
argued
some,
this
like,
definition.
you can
It's a
bring up
big defeater
suits
for feminist ideology
that
as
you
well.
were like unjustly
All right, Ripter,
fired,
thank you for that. We have
or
Lucas. Here it
this
is.
or that.
Truth is, the little lady is weak and intellectually
But they're really,
feeble,
really,
and
really
otherwise
difficult.
mired in echo chamber with her views never challenged. Just a hunch here, love, but an oral argument in front of SCOTUS is probably not in the cards for you. Now bring out the therapy dog. Okay. And, you know, Lucas, you maybe wanted that directed at her, but she did have to step away for.
I saw one of the dating talk episodes, and this chick had a therapy dog with her, and it literally was just like barking and running around and being crazy the whole time.
For a moment, but the audience did get to
It's
see
not
it.
a trained
and,
therapy
we do have a
dog.
bit of a time limit here, so I'm going to see if there's
Oh,
any
yeah,
Streamlabs
and,
messages
like,
that we can let come through.
There's accusations of like him not feeding people, and
Let's
it's,
see here.
it's
One sec,
rough if
guys.
you want
There's
to
a
go on
lot, so
whatever.
I'll try to get through to
At least
all
on
of
Fresh
them.
and Fit, like the
One
episodes
sec.
aren't that long, and they
Shoot.
happily,
We have
like, Myron's not going to
let's see.
stop you from leaving.
Using
If you want to leave, he's like,
$100.
cool, rage quit,
Big fan
clip
of
it,
Andrew,
ship
even
it,
though I'm older than him.
bye.
Member at Crucible. This
That's if you
lady
even
hasn't
make it
had
to
an
the end.
argument since you hacked her phone reception. Lolly lolly lol.
Yeah, we you know, we've got what Faraday cage
Dude,
in the
these
studio, so
these chatters
they can't.
are
It allows all the signal to
unhinged
get out, but,
sometimes.
all right, thank you for that, Christopher Murphy. Thank you.
All right, does she come back?
Christopher Murphy donated
She does come back one more
$100.
time, I think.
I'm a proud Crucible member.
Thank you,
You
man.
and Rachel are finally getting the recognition you two deserve.
Deserve?
Keep it up. Brian,
Christopher, thank you.
Eh.
I'm trying to be as fair as I can. All right, here I'll let the.
I've actually had someone offer to pay me, because I'm assuming if I leave early, you won't pay me. So, but I've had someone in my comments offer to pay me the amount that I was paid to be here. So I'm gonna go because I have medical problems. I'm not feeling good.
What if somebody in our chat offers to pay you
More.
Do you think they would?
Yeah.
Well, they would pay me, and then
This is all about
Yes,
money?
if someone offered, I would stay and I would cry on camera. But I don't know if they will.
This is why we have the wage gap. This is literally why we have the wage gap, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
But I highly doubt
Jesus.
that
This isn't
someone
why
will
we have
offer
the
that.
wage gap.
I wonder. So they're offering you.
They're offering me 50.
So if you stay for another 2 hours, what would that cost?
Oh my God.
Like $500
No.
It would cost her
Oh my
life,
God.
probably.
More.
on top.
Like probably double.
Double
500, so 1,000.
The original. Okay, double the original. So I think we would need, in order, would you actually, if it was doubled, would
If
you?
it was actually doubled, I would stay, because again, I am like, I do have a problem. Like, so I could probably stay a little longer.
2 hours.
I would just have to
2
take
hours
breaks.
beyond. So we're talking 8:30.
Sure. Then I would need like
For
triple, because I like.
Yeah, for her,
You're a
for
tough
sure.
negotiator, Kylie. You're a tough negotiator.
That being said,
This girl over here, tough negotiator.
I genuinely do have issues though. Like I'm not. That's not a
regular
lie,
ass
so I just
college
don't
students
like to talk about it.
have
But
done
I
this one-on-one with
think I
Andrew
have a hard
for like
time.
5 hours
Yeah.
and fought
Like
him
I
tooth and nail the
And what is
entire
the issue
time
anyway?
and not
I
tried to
don't like
leave.
to talk about it, but I've had like concussions, and stuff like that. So
Concussions?
It's like a brain- like a-
TBI.
yeah. I mean, traumatic brain injury. Yeah, it was a traumatic. It's like I get like really bad headaches and like
Do you want? We have like
difficulty breathing.
Tylenol or ibuprofen. We could give you.
But yeah, I don't really want to go too much into it.
Okay.
She's definitely about to leave.
But I
Oh,
have had
yeah.
someone offer me, but I just don't think this is a good environment. So I think I'll just take the offer that the person has given me of the original amount, and I'm just gonna head out.
It's
I
kind of
think,
based,
so.
though.
Yeah. I think my health is more important than whatever you've offered me, which is not much. So.
I mean, I don't think it's fair. You know, we've been very generous here at the Whatever podcast. I don't know if that's a fair categorization. So
It's
you
an
said the
unfair
double. So if somebody does essentially,
categorization. Honestly, just the
somebody wanna send in,
publicity
like,
from
an
this is
Ethereum
probably
And
I'll-
again, like, this isn't
good
really my
enough for
network,
her.
so I don't think anyone's gonna offer
like
it.
that's gonna
so.
make her way more
But
money
I
than
guess,
Brian's offering her.
You know, nothing is impossible.
Are there any takers in the chat who want to see this? Wait,
But
let
this
me
is
ask the
clearly
chat. Why don't
over.
I pull the chat. So like 8:40 Pacific time. Is it standard time or? Pacific
think,
Standard?
yeah.
Is it standard time or is it daylight?
All
No, it's
right.
standard.
I know how we can raise the money. So here on my notepad, right down here, okay, we're going to play
What do you do for
Hangman. I'll
work?
play Hangman. Chat, we're going to play, okay, yeah, we're going to play Chat Hangman. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play Chat Hangman. It gives you the letter. I'll Hangman. That's how we're Chat Hangman.
Have been lovely, but I really like debate. It was
Do you want to
interesting
do
and fun.
Do you
but
want to give a closing statement?
my closing statement is that I love to learn
Closing
and
statement.
to meet new people, and I wasn't putting my medical issue aside for money. I didn't know how long
Don't
this was going to be. And that was
never
my fault, I
respond
will
to
admit.
chat on the
But I
Whatever
appreciate
podcast. Never look at
learning new
chat.
perspectives. I was hoping
It's like
this would
lesson
be
number
a
1.
more calm and
Don't look at
demure
chat. Don't respond to
experience, because
chat.
I've been trying to be more, you know, about facts and negotiating. But I appreciate the time that I've had here, and I'm, you know, looking forward to learning more about you both. So.
Wait, what does that mean?
Oh, I mean, like
Learn?
learning more about, like I knew about your network before coming in. I had seen some videos, but
Okay.
now I'm more interested in like you
So-
guys.
Yeah, so what about this? We'll double, but we add 2 hours on top. Whatever
She's-
podcast, will double it.
Right,
She's leaving.
Stay for the money, like if that makes sense. But I like have to go, so I'm gonna go.
Girl,
like, it's not like a
you're
money
good.
thing
You're gonna
anymore.
make
I'm gonna
more
stay
money
for Andrew's closing statement and
clip farming this on TikTok than Brian's
yeah,
gonna pay
I'll
you.
stay for that.
Here,
but
wait,
can we make it
before-
5 minutes?
Okay,
Well, it sounds
10
like,
minutes. That's fair.
and Brian does
That
this.
seems
I mean I literally just.
Here, we got
Sounds
Leonidas
like-
here. Listen to Leonidas, then Andrew's gonna give his closing statement.
Leonidas donated
She didn't
$100. Kylie, curious,
know it was going to be
age
this
of
long,
kids you teach.
and I just don't think she
Also,
was
what is a
prepared,
woman?
actually prepared to
Also,
debate
are
Andrew.
women as a group oppressed in
I
the
don't know
USA?
why.
Not there, but okay.
If so, how?
That's a lot.
Are you?
We'll
She
rapid
really
fire
should have
it.
watched a lot of
If
Andrew.
so, how?
And Raphael
And
did
are
the
men
same
as a group
thing
oppressed?
the other
And you
night.
said
He
you're an
was
educator
totally
or
unprepared
Yeah.
to debate Andrew.
I'm a,
Tutor
and
or
he's
I'm a
something.
apparently
private tutor,
debated
and
him
I'm
before.
also a substitute teacher, and I
sure.
teach in 3 primary high schools in Chicago. Yeah,
So you teach like elementary school kids?
no, high school.
Oh, high school. Okay. He asked.
Oh,
what
my
is a
brother's a
woman?
high school. That
Quick answer
my
if you can.
I think
Sibling
a
is a high
woman
school teacher.
is someone who is. I mean, it depends. Like biologically, female is different from being a woman.
Actually, I
but
think 2 of my
someone
siblings
who's
are
a
high
woman
school
is
teachers
someone
now.
who's characteristically
One of them might be middle school still.
a person who associates themselves with femininity, and that is open to interpretation of who wants to identify as one.
If I may just ask one clarifying question, can a female become a male, or can a male become a female?
Jubilee
Like,
style. Hope you do it a
biologically
little better than
speaking, I
Jubilee.
believe the sexes of male and female, but I think if a person wants to be a woman or a man, absolutely, yeah.
And then.
Oh yeah, Andrew's
are women
brain would
as a
melt
group
out of his
oppressed in the USA?
freaking
Your
skull if he
answer?
had to work in a NICU.
I think it's possible, but I really need to leave.
May I just at least? Can you stay for Andrew's close?
No, I don't.
Look, we're not kidnapping you. I'm just asking if you can at least
You
stay.
have to clarify you're not kidding. Yeah.
Well, yeah, not.
All right.
No.
Adios. She gone?
Are you oppressed? Do you want to just
Brian.
answer that? You don't need to say into the mic. Just
Okay. All right. Poor girl. She was obviously not prepared for that, which is unfortunate. But hey, she tried. I believe they're doing like a special thing tomorrow, and then there's another debate with Andrew on Monday night. We could talk about that for a minute. That really I don't know why I still expect this, but this is just a message to anyone who's even center left, liberal, all the way left, whatever, anyone to the left, or even if you just don't agree with Andrew Wilson on something and you want to debate him, okay? You need to know what you're walking into, because that girl was not even in the ballpark of prepared. She wasn't even in the remotest ballpark of prepared for that. You also need to watch a little bit of the Whatever podcast, because you have to learn the way that Brian operates, because it's a little sketch. You hear a lot about kind of poor to medium communication before the show. A lot of people get there and they're confused about how long it's going to take. It takes like 6, 7, 8 hours sometimes. You have to be ready for that. And it's all just, you really need to be prepared if you're going to walk into that room, and especially to debate Andrew Wilson. So I don't know. She's probably hasn't ever done a debate like that before. It obviously, she folded quite a few times. She left the table near or in tears on a few occasions. She left basically in tears. Somebody in her chat literally bailed her out of the situation. And it's unfortunate. There's been a couple of Andrew Wilson debates recently that, you know, the liberal side of things just went into completely unprepared. And at this point, there's really no excuse for that. He's been getting bigger and bigger. His stuff is all over. He's been on Pierce Morgan. Like, if you're going to debate this guy, you got to know who he is, and you got to be ready for what's about to go down. I feel for her, but man, it's just unfortunate. Anyway, that's going to do it for tonight. Like I said, I've got a little work to do before I go to sleep. It's about midnight where I am, so yeah, it was nice